This is Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty. Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty.
Apparently, our site is having millions of hits and is overloaded, so everyone out there, please be patient. We'll try and get it back up when I guess we can. So. I think this is a little harder than I first thought. We were completely overwhelmed by the amazing response we got when we announced Star Citizen. But unfortunately, our servers were even more overwhelmed than we were and went down for a few days. So we're just at the tail end of getting it all back into order. But in the meantime, the kind folks at Kickstarter have offered to help out, and we'll be launching a Star Citizen Kickstarter page. And we know there's a lot of you out there that have asked for the Kickstarter option. You feel more comfortable with it. It's certainly more scalable than the solution that we built on our own site here. So we ask you, if you haven't pledged yet, please go and pledge there. If that doesn't work for you because you want to use PayPal or you're in Europe or something, then you can also pledge on this site. In all cases, your pledges will be connected to your Roberts Space Industries membership and account, and hopefully will be all seamless. We certainly will work really hard to try and ensure that. And I would like to thank everybody that's already pledged, that's fought through the numerous glitches and bugs we've had. Thank you so much for your perseverance. To the people that have been trying to pledge and haven't managed to get through, thank you again. We hopefully will be able to accommodate you now. And for the people that haven't pledged yet, I thank you in advance, because I really, really would like to build this game. I want to build it with you, the community. I'm having a lot of fun in the process already, reading the forum posts that we have. I've even posted on a few of the forums. And the idea of sort of building a great space adventure with the community is something that's incredibly appealing to me. And I think you guys will have a lot of fun in the process too. So get out there, support us, pledge, and I have some homework to get back to.
And good evening. Welcome back to Soul Citizens. I'm GriffinGamingRPG, and we are back for our first show of 2023. And it's the old head show. I'm here with the guys who have been around for quite a while. Whoa, Thrakazan, thank you so much for that gift sub. Or that subscriber sub. Thank you for resubscribing. Appreciate that for 17 months.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're back.
Thank you very much.
We're back. I'm back with my comrades, fastcart FC and Younique. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us today.
Good to have you guys.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, 2023.
Happy New Year.
2953, if we want to call it that. And
yeah, right.
Yeah, we're doing a throwback to 2942. I'm actually going to say just 10 years because it just was back in October, November when this all started.
Right.
So we're going to go back about 10 years. Kind of funny too, because all those dates were 10, 10, and 10. Younique, you were around back in the day. That thing there on the little promo with the 10, 10, and 10. Why don't you kind of enlighten people to what that thing was or is?
So they've destroyed that website and made it disappear. I tried to search for old pages and stuff and couldn't find it because that original website is the one I pledged on.
Okay.
And I can tell you, it was a disaster.
Well, what is that thing that we're looking at though on the screen though? The thing with the 10, 10, and 10. The thank you says thank you. What's that gold thing under there?
Oh, the golden ticket.
Yeah, tell folks about what the golden ticket was.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. So you could get the golden ticket for some sort of hoop you jump through, and then it'll let you, I guess, get into any event forever or something.
Yeah, it was
future events,
promotional kind of thing, and
yeah,
and everybody there was some. Actually, there's a video of like 10 people, I think, that ended up getting them or something like that. And
yeah, it was a very small group.
Yeah, very small group of folks. But
there was some mutiny, and that's kind of where the black card came out.
I remember the black card. But so wait, let me get this straight because I didn't know this part. So you got to go and take it. I didn't write that. You can go to any citizen card, any
there was
event.
Some promotional.
It was something like that. We'd have to go back, but yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I can't remember what the whole thing behind it was, but I know there's a video out there with Sandy, and she has the golden ticket winners. They're all standing there talking about that they had the tickets and blah, 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 blah. And the 10, 10, 10 was the date that at GDC they were going to do this big announcement about Star Citizen. So October 10th of 2010. Oh no, that's when it was. No, what was it? It wasn't 2010. It was.
No, 2012, but it was 10 a.m. 10
a.m. That's what it was. Thank you, Fastcart. I'm getting old. Sorry. Gotten old. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about Kickstarter and how things got started. Now, my comrades here don't know what made me decide to have this conversation. Last month, there were a couple of streamers that put out videos talking about what people have said about Star Citizen and Squadron 42 versus what the actual kickoff was. You know, did these games come out where they announced simultaneously? Did Star Citizen come and then Squadron 42 was an afterthought? Or were they originally set up so that you did one and you went into the other automatically? Were they both supposed to be released at the same time? There's all these different things that people have believed. And even I myself, I told Fastcart that I had to go back and double back and look, because I was under the impression, even though I knew that the idea was that when you played Squadron 42 and you exited the game, you were going to have some type of status, civilian, Star Citizen, traitor, whatever. And then from there, you would go into the open world PU. But you don't have to play the game that way. You could, if you don't want to play Squadron 42, you can just go into the universe. Or if you want to play Squadron 42, you could do that. But Younique was around when Robert Space Industries website was up before the Kickstarter. And that's something I haven't seen, and probably most of you have never seen, the original site. And I'm not talking about the site before the version we have now. I'm saying there was a different setup for signing up for the game prior to the Kickstarter page. And people like Younique and dozens and thousands of other people, when they signed up for Star Citizen, they did it on that website, which was laid out differently. Information was a little bit different. And so we're going to get some clarity about what that was like. So Younique, if you want to kind of talk a little bit, because you talked about the crash aspect, we showed the video, but maybe with what you do remember from that site, maybe share with some folks about what it was like to sign up, or what the marketing was, or what they were advertising. Anything you want to share, go ahead and share that with us.
All right. Well, again, this is my recollection, so it may prove out to be wrong because I'm old now. You can see all the gray hairs coming out, all of us up here. But my recollection, and again, I was right about to get on a cruise with my 3 much younger daughters at the time. So I was quite focused on that. We heard that Chris Roberts was putting up a thing and jumped on the website, tried to put money in a couple of times. It didn't go through, but then it finally went through, and I was getting a 300 series ship. There weren't a whole bunch of ships or anything like that. That was like the only thing you could get. They did express that the game was Star Citizen. You were going to be flying in a squadron, and that was Squadron 42. That's the squadron in the game that you would be assigned. And it was mapped a lot towards the idea of wing commander. right? The wing commander that he always wanted to do but couldn't do. And I rolled all the way through Wing Commander 4, so I'm like, yeah, here you go. Here's like, whatever it was, $60, and give me the game when you get it. So we went on the cruise and came back, and there's a whole new website. The other website's gone. You're like, what's going on? And they're like, we got this Kickstarter campaign. And you log into Kickstarter and you find out, and like, my pledge isn't there. So you start emailing people like, what about it? Don't worry, we got your pledge. And I'm like, well, yeah, I understand you got my money. I checked my bank account. You got my money. But what I don't see is what I'm supposed to get, because Kickstarter's really good at showing you, hey, you're going to get this, and this is when it's going to happen. Here's the time frames and the money tickers. It's a really showy piece thing, especially 15 years ago when it was sort of starting that kind of thing up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll support a few projects. So anyway, they said, don't worry, when the Kickstarter's over, we'll merge your accounts in and all that other nifty stuff. But in the meantime, you can pledge more. So I was like, you could. I was like, yeah, no thanks. I'll wait till this whole thing's over. But then they got more money than they ever expected, right, in that first round of stuff. And that's where, because the original idea was Chris, I'll say him / team or family put up a couple mil. They were looking for us to match that. That would give them 4 mil. And again, this is my recollection of the story. And then they would ask a studio for $6 million to make a $10 million, and that was going to be the game. Okay. Now it may cost more or less at that point, but that's where it started. Well, the Russian money came in so fast that they just realized that, well, if we already got 2 million in like 4 seconds, that the community can probably just give us all the money and we can go without a studio. So they pitched that idea, and the money just, it was, the floodgates of money. If you had money, because he was talking to the Wing Commander group, but I think when I was playing Wing Commander, I was in my 20s, late 20s. So now everybody's ending, near high up in their career. They're managers and VPs, and they're driving Porsches or whatever. You're not a kid getting a game from your grandma of Wing Commander for $49, and you're like, oh no, it's just, hey, I got disposable cash. I ain't got to play around the golf this weekend, and so that was it. And then after a while, the money kept, and again, it just kept coming in. It was phenomenal about how much money everybody was pitching in. And they were just offering ideas at certain funding levels. So the money kept coming in, and the bar just rose and rose and rose. So we're checking off each funding thing. It was like a game to us.
Okay, so let me stop you for a second there, because I was playing Eve at the time that this all started. I hadn't heard anything about the original launch or, development of Star Citizen. When I heard from it, it was a friend of mine. She and I played Eve, and she said, hey, did you hear Chris Roberts is doing a new game? I'm like, no, I hadn't heard anything about it. In fact, when she said Chris Roberts, that didn't even resonate with me until she said Wing Commander. And then I said, oh, no, I didn't know nothing about it. She says, yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, well, I'll check it out. By that time, I was looking at the Kickstarter page. I didn't see the page you're talking about, the original Robert Space Industry site. I never saw that. By the time I came in, it was like it must have been like late October, early November. That's when I came in. Now, like you said, Kickstarters at that time was just starting to, build momentum, right? So there was a lot of uncertainty. I didn't know, okay, you hear about these developers going on Kickstarter, blah, 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 blah. It didn't have a bad reputation, but it also didn't have a reputation as far as I was concerned to feel like, putting money in for this. It took a while of research and looking and digging before I finally realized, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. By that time, we had passed the November date. And so I missed being in that initial aspect of the Kickstarter. You were there prior to Kickstarter and during Kickstarter. That's what I'm understanding? Because like you said, it was a very short window. When they had the problems with their website, and in fact, the video we opened up with, Chris talked about that. His wife comes up to him, gives him a note saying, hey, the website has crashed. And then he comes back later and says, we have decided to partner with Kickstarter so that we can do it in a much better way. And that's the part you're reminding us of right now, that there was this change from the Robert Space Industry site to pull money to now Kickstarter's page. And then, as you said, when it got in Kickstarter, it really started blowing up at that point with even more money, right?
Well, yes, it was blowing up. I mean, the early things of stretch goals came out, but they were just from Chris Roberts and his team, and they just laid them out. It was like a ladder.
Right.
And it just said, every so much money, we're going to do this. And then if we get to that, it's like 200K or something. Right. I think it was even 100K with the small things. They were incrementing it like that. And we just blew past like the first 10. And they said, well, these increments are too small. So they increase the increment size, and then we kicked off like the next 10 at that increment size. And it literally got up to like $1 million in increment. And it, like I said, for me, it felt like a game. Like Chris Roberts was asking, well, how much money you guys have? And we're like, you have no idea. Here you go.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. When those increments were going up, and we're going to come back to this later on in the show, guys, so just bear with us here.
Thank you, GoMob, for the subscription.
Yeah, GoMob, thank you so much for that scrub. That's up. Thank you. This is what Younique is talking about. And we're going to come back to this later on, but this is what he's talking about. Now, my question to you is, when you saw this, because this is showing after the fact, when you saw it, was that incremental thing you're talking about, was that on the Robert Space Industry site that you saw it, or was it on the Kickstarter
site? That was all on the Kickstarter after.
Okay, after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
After the fact,
gotcha,
it was
because $6 million was what they ended up doing. That was the big number that they ended with when they ended the Kickstarter.
Right.
Okay, got you. Okay, that makes
so
sense.
there was the original Chris Roberts website, the Kickstarter, it ended, and then they got their own website again to start collecting money.
Further on. Okay, got you. Okay.
Yeah, once they dumped Kickstarter.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I heard about the Kickstarter during October. I missed the original website that Younique was talking about, but I did see the Kickstarter page that you just showed. And I was playing Star Wars: The Old Republic at the time, and my friend said, "Oh, Chris Roberts, the creator of Ring Commander, is making a new game." I was like, "Oh, really?" And at the time, it was like I never played the Ring Commander game. I was more of the X-Wing and TIE Fighter LucasArts game. So I went and take a look, and then I saw the Robert Space Industries, and I was like, why are you using Robert Space Industries and not StarCitizen.com or Squadron42.com? So I'm like, okay, I'll come back to this later. So, Younique, do you know why? Griffin, you may know. Do you know why they didn't use a StarCitizen.com or Squadron42.com page instead of like a Robert Space Industries.com?
Because that's the game, Star Citizen, Squadron 42. They wanted the website to be a company. They knew that a company had to own it since they weren't going to have a studio, right? It's not like EA Sports or something, right? So suddenly they just realized, hey, we got this game, and then enough money started coming in that it became multiple games, 2 at least. And then over time, obviously, you can see now they're gunning for even more games by providing the technology to other people. Right. And so there's going to be a host of
more of a
games using this style. Yeah, it's branding.
Yeah, more of a branding thing.
It had to be a company that owned the title.
Right, they fall under those titles or other things like you said that may come. So they're looking down the road, not just the immediate of saying Star Citizen.
Right, because they were going to become their own studio.
Okay. And that's understandable because there's the space dynamic of what he's creating game wise, but then there's still Cloud Imperium that is the development corporation or company that could go whatever direction they want to go. Like you said, Younique, they could do whatever they want to under that brand, which is totally different. But as far as space games and stuff, it would make sense that he might put it under Robert Space Industries. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, say they took that graphic technology and started, the Sims, some sort of, what is that? Family game Sims, but made it prettier, and you could get to control the whole planet instead of just your house and a little neighborhood.
Yep.
And it's completely ridiculous what you can do.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you for that history because, most of us have picked up on our history from Kickstarter Day. And a lot of people maybe didn't even know about the golden ticket. They didn't know about, a few months beforehand, there was an announcement on the Robert Space Industry site. Now, one last question I do want to ask you, Younique, and I'm going to ask fastcart the same question. How did you find out about it just in general? Because you came in before Kickstarter. Was it just that you heard about Chris Roberts making a game, or did you read an article? How'd you find out about the game itself was being made?
I heard it just from the gaming group that I hung out with.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
so we were playing Eve, we were playing all these other things, and we had come out, you know, a long time from Wing Commander, flying simulators, and F-15 Strike Eagle. We were big into, you know, flying simulators
Sims,
and combat and things like that. So a friend of mine wasn't really in it. He just knew I was into Wing Commander. He was into F-15s.
Oh.
So him and I would fly F-15 together.
Mhm.
But I would do Wing Commander and just let him know how I did.
Mhm.
And then he had heard about it, and he emailed me and said, "Hey, I know you're getting ready to get on that cruise, but you should check this out before you do. Chris Roberts is at it again." That's all he said. Chris Roberts is at it again. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
So I thought maybe it was going to be a Wing Commander 5 or something, you know?
Right. And the reason why I asked that is because I was big on reading all the PC gamer magazines and everything else, and I saw absolutely nothing saying that Chris Roberts
early on,
was
it was a
making
bunch of word of mouth. It was a bunch of word of mouth.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, FCU, you came in, you said about October, but you didn't get in on it before the Kickstarter ended, right?
Right.
How did you find out? How did you find out?
Like I said, my friend, my guild from Star Wars Republic, we were in Ventrilo at the time, and
Ventrilo, yeah.
And one of the guys said, "Oh, Chris Roberts is making a new game," and I said, "Oh, what is it?" And he said, they're having a Kickstarter. I'm like, "Oh, give me a link." So that's how I found out. Now, how my friend found out, I had to go back and ask him, because I don't know how he found out about it. But I'm guessing it's word of mouth.
Yeah, because like I said, it was word of mouth for me, but I just felt kind of weird. I almost didn't feel bad, but like I said, I was reading all the PC Gamer and everything else, and I never saw anything about it until it was at Kickstarter level. You know, I didn't know there was a Robert Space Industry page before that.
I didn't either.
You know? So that's why I'm asking, and Younique kind of answered it. You know, it was word of mouth. Evidently, that's how people found out. Okay.
Well, the website was so bad. I mean, it was down way more, and you know, it was literally was we're going to get it back up as soon as possible, you know. Like
yeah.
So it was hard if you heard about it and you went to the website,
right?
You never saw it.
Now, I know,
half the time.
The Kickstarter the site was much better for them with all the traffic they were generating.
Yeah, and that's what he was saying in the video, that it would help be able to manage it better. Last question, Younique, and then we're going to start the video. You mentioned, and I do know that, you know, in the beginning, there were very few ships available. The 300i was one of the first videos that they put out in the Aurora. Were those pretty much the only? I know on the Kickstarter page there were ships listed there, but when you signed up prior to the Kickstarter page, was the 300i, that was the only thing that was outlined? Because I know the Connie is mentioned on the Kickstarter page. Not many other ships are mentioned, and the Cutlass.
Yeah, so they had a couple of tiers of ships, you know. So there was like the Aurora, and everybody's like, "Oh, what would I do with that ship?" The 300 was a decent price kind of thing, and then, and again, I'm pretty sure they were feeling out the market. So here's the Constellation. Look at that. You're like, yeah, I'll never pay that kind of money.
Yeah,
you know, for a $60 game.
Yeah,
and you know, here I am, thousands of dollars into it.
Yeah,
completely crazy.
I want to go back to something that Dr. Love is saying about the title RobertSpaceIndustries.com. And don't get me wrong, Dr. Love, we know that that's a part of the lore in the game and the history behind where it came from. I think fastcart's referring from a real world business standpoint.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Right.
We get the RSI thing. He's just asking, why did they decide to name the website that in real world time versus saying StarCitizen.com or Squadron42, because that would have been the natural default that any player, if you hear about a game, you'd pull that up. If you don't know there's an RSI, you wouldn't even know to look for that. What you would go to is, let me see if I can find Star Citizen, you know. And so, and that has always been a question that people have asked, is why is the site called RobertSpaceIndustries.com? We do get the RSI part in relation to lore and everything, but we were just kind of curious about that because you are a person in game, not in real life. Yeah, we get that.
I mean, it's fair. Yeah, he's right. Yeah, but at the time that was not obvious.
Yeah.
At the time that was not obvious.
Yeah, it wasn't obvious. Yeah, if you don't know the lore and the background behind it, if somebody told me there's a game called Star Citizen, I'm gonna look up Star Citizen. I don't know nothing about Robert.
As a matter of fact, it's not even obvious now because the people probably still have that question now.
Yeah, they still do when people go look it up. So okay. Yeah, the whole immersion. Yeah, immersion's in the game. I'm talking about real world. I get it. I get it. I'm talking real world. Okay.
To him, that in the game is the only real world.
Hey, I ain't mad at you. Believe me.
Yeah, exactly.
I ain't mad at you. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in now, guys. What we're going to be doing today. Some of you have seen it before, but we are going to go over GDC. I do want to talk about, again, the statement that I made earlier about why I brought this up, because there is different people say, some people have said different things about when things came out in the game. From what I understand and what Younique told me, Younique, I'm gonna let you share this one last thing too, because Younique says that the impressions he got when this came out was that this was about Squadron 42. We're talking pre-Kickstarter page, y'all. Okay, Younique, would you talk a little bit about that when you first signed up? What you understood, whether about the verse, the PU, please explain what you from back in August or whatever month it was, September of that year.
Yeah. So for me, my understanding was the game was Squadron, or the game was Star Citizen, but your life would be joining a group of fighting military people called Squadron 42, much like Wing Commander. Okay. The game was Wing Commander, but you joined a certain group inside of the game. So it's structured like that. And a lot of references to Wing Commander in that style. It's a story that you were living in, and your actions mattered to kind of branch you through the story. And you might come out, you start out as a lowly lieutenant flying your craft, and you got your rank based on how well you did. And maybe you make it to full colonel, maybe you only make it to like captain or something because you don't quite get all the missions done. But you would have an end of the holy thing. So there'd be some chapters, and possibly as the money poured out, there would be more chapters over time created, kind of like Wing Commander 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of thing like that. I didn't hear anything about any sort of MMO thing until Kickstarter came along. And even in the Kickstarter, it was a later stretch goal. And then I don't think they thought we would hit that. I don't think they thought that people would want it to be that because of all the money ahead of time on what they were after. But when that box got checked for the MMO, then they had to start figuring out, well, how do we do that? And so it became that Squadron 42 was a lead-in to the PU, right? And the PU now is called Star Citizen instead of Squadron 42. So you would go into that either after you finish Squadron 42, or you could skip it and go into that kind of like as a civilian. With no real reputation from being in the military or whatever, which is fine. I mean, so that was the rough idea that was pitched to us, and it's kind of developed over time.
And there's a reason why I'm having Younique mention that, because when we watch GDC, and remember that this was October, and when you go to the Kickstarter website, Chris outlines there's Star Citizen and Squadron 42, or better yet, there's Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. And he talks about this thing of playing Squadron 42, and when you come out of that, you'd be able to go into the persistent universe, which he calls the PU, which is Star Citizen. Now, I'm saying that so that we don't get the confusion going, because we tried to do a lot of research. We tried to dig up, finding the old web pages, all that stuff. We couldn't do it. It was difficult. I couldn't do it. Maybe somebody else out there knows how to do it. I can't. But Younique was there, and he says, as far as he recollects, and I want to give him a waiver. He says, as far as he remembers, the big pitch at that time was Squadron 42. This much bigger universe and world. And you mentioned this earlier too, Younique. There was conversations about multiple chapters. They did talk about more Squadron 42s, right? That was part of the thing too, right? But
yeah, that was a possibility.
Possibility. So just want to kind of make sure that's clear. No waiver. Can't get any waivers. Okay, Scuba. All right. Because, we don't want to give out bad information. Okay, but but that's why we're saying, I'm talking to somebody who was there, because there are some people who have, and I've even said, I wasn't sure. Once I went back, I said, well, maybe both of these were at the same time. By the time the Kickstarter came around, Chris was talking about this new idea of the PU. But as you guys know, when he put out the video, the kickoff video that we're going to see in a few minutes, it was really about a standalone Squadron 42. That's what it was about. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in and watch the video. We've talked long enough.
Yeah, it even had limited solar systems. I mean, the whole idea of 100, so it was like 10 or 20 at the most.
Okay. Yeah, because he expands them later on. Okay.
Let's go ahead and jump stretch into goals. It. Watch the stretch goals.
Yep. Alrighty, here we go. We may stop from time to time if there's something a point that we want to mention, or if we see something in chat. But otherwise, get something to drink because this video is about 57 minutes long, and then we're going to talk after that and look at the website. So here we go. Remember how good we thought this looked back in the day?
Yeah.
We thought this was amazing.
Back in the day, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was.
Count the colors on that ship.
Right?
Squadron 42.
Please welcome to the stage Chris Roberts.
Dirk had a question in chat. Was it still made in the 24 months that Chris Roberts mentioned in the GDC Golden Ticket?
Good morning, everyone.
I think this was, but I'm not sure.
Oh, that video, that part, yes.
People, but I'm glad you got
You
out
worked
here
on that
early.
beforehand.
I hope you like what you saw. That I'm actually pretty proud of it because it was all rendered in the game engine and using the game assets.
Guys, give me a number one if the sound is good for you.
It was the sort of thing that we could only do in pre-rendered sequences, and not that long ago when I did the Wing Commander movie, we had to have millions of dollars of SGI machines to do that, and that was all done on a PC with a GTX 670,
Zero.
which is pretty cool. And in case you don't believe me, we're going to jump into the game engine a little later on, and I'm going to sort of show you some stuff in it and show you some stuff that I think is pretty cool. But before that, I thought I would have a little conversation with you and tell you why I'm coming back, kind of why I took a little bit of a break, and I'll sort of tell you the big picture of the game that this past year I've been in sort of super secret pre-production and prototyping, which is what you've seen here, and sort of tell you about kind of what I'm planning to build, and hopefully invite you guys to be part of that process going forward. So let me.
Can I just mention again look how young he looks?
Clicker here to move this on. So I think you guys know that
gained a lot of weight since then.
Sold Visual Anvil to Microsoft.
He's been eating well. All that money he's been getting.
I took a break from the game business. It was there was several reasons, but one of the big ones was that I was sort of frustrated with the technology of being able to realize sort of the picture of the vision I had in my head. And then also there was the ever-increasing development cycle. So most of the Wing Commanders I made I built in about a year or 18 months. But Freelancer, we were sort of 4 years into production. And Microsoft bought the company, and it was still another 2 years before it came out. So sort of 6 years between releasing and people getting to play the game that you've been working on sort of was feeling too long, and I was fairly frustrated with that. And then there was also just an element of the business was getting sort of big and corporate, and you had to be more about being.
Well, it should take him 2 years for Wing Commander and 6 years for Freelancer.
I sort of felt like I wanted to take a break.
What he just said. You can scale it up for Star Citizen. That means 12 years for Star Citizen, right?
Play a lot more games.
Yeah, probably, but lots of it's based on the technology, how far you could push it on the PCs back then.
The newest PC with the newest graphics card and the whatever the new console is, a couple of years ago was sort of the first time that I was playing games and feeling like I actually have something to say again, and I'd like to come back and make a game. And I sort of felt playing it on a couple of things. One, I sort of felt like the technology had moved forward to a point, and also I could see where it was going to go, that you could do stuff in terms of the visual fidelity that would just increase the immersion. And so for me, all the games
we're gonna play a game. Just started, right? Thank you for the subscription meltdown. 27 months. Thank you.
A fair amount of detail, and I think
today,
especially if you're focusing on a high-end PC, which I'm doing, you can sort of do that to a level that just sort of sucks you into the world. And I think
Captain Harris, I was thinking the same thing. James Cameron and Chris Roberts are similar. They're waiting for technology to catch up to their imagination.
A film set in today's world, half the time you think those were shot on real locations, but usually they were actually sets that were built, and they have a whole art department, and they've got people that figuring out how to put the little scratches, the ticks, little rivets on the walls and everything, just down to the finest details. So when you watch it, you think it's real and you get sucked into it. And I think that's something that in it, when you're building a world or a game, the more of that you have into it, I think it helps. I mean, I definitely one of the games that I liked a lot a few years ago was Uncharted 2, and I think they did a great job. It wasn't so much that the gameplay itself was wholly original, because it's sort of an evolution of Tomb Raider and a third cover shooter, but the texture of it and the world and the detail, I was completely immersed in. And so at that point I was lost, and it was great. And so the technology being able to let you do that now is sort of, I think, one of the big reasons. And the other reason for me that I'm sort of excited to come back and make games again is I sort of feel like, with the shift to digital and the way that you can sort of be connected to your community of people that are playing the games that you make, I think that's incredibly exciting. I mean, I think I was saying one of my frustrations in the old days was that you'd work for many years on a game, and then you would put it on a disc, and then it would go in a box, and it would go out to the store, and then people would buy it, and hopefully they liked it, and then it would all be over after a month, and then you would start it all over again, and there'll be another 2-3 years before you would get to do that again. And that, if you're a creative person, that's kind of gets frustrating, especially the longer it gets. And I think in today's world, when you sort of can be connected and you can sort of build a world that maybe people are playing all the time and there's constant updates, that it's a totally different equation. And I think that you have much more instant feedback. And I think from my standpoint anyway, I think it's incredibly exciting, and it's kind of fun. I mean, I don't know how many of the people in here went on the sort of early teaser site that we put up about 30 days ago, but even on that site, we have been doing 2 to 3 content updates a day. And it's kind of fun. You're sort of doing it live, and you're seeing what people are saying when you put stuff up. And I really sort of feel like that's something that is fun and will be great to explore going forward. And so that was one of the sort of core tenets of me saying, hey, I want to come back and I want to do something to that direction. So here we go. Press my little button. So what am I going to build? So I'm going to build a universe, and the sort of name of the universe, or the community I'm talking about, is going to be called Star Citizen. And it's Star Citizen because, citizenship's very important in this universe. You don't automatically get it. You have to earn it. So you can earn it via military duty, like the sort of cinematic teaser that we just showed is from the sort of military side of it. Or you could earn it by performing missions that would increase your civic standing. Or you could just be, an entrepreneur, a merchant, earn a lot of money and buy your citizenship. And of course, in this universe, you don't necessarily have to be a citizen. In fact, if you were a pirate or sort of on the sort of grayer side of law and order, you may not want to be a citizen. But the idea is that there's sort of something that you can attain and work towards. And also, I like the idea of citizenship because I sort of feel like one of the things I want to do with this game is I want to say, hey, you know what? PC games are cool, space games are cool, and I think it's kind of a community, and I've definitely seen it in the sort of Wing Commander fan community. I've seen it in the freelancer fan community, and I sort of feel like, I sort of want to pull a community together and then sort of build a great universe.
Thanks for the follow.
Have that ongoing sort of relationship, and people will be citizens of this universe. It'll be hopefully very cool. But the base gameplay in Star Citizen is it's going to be the style of game that I've built in the past, which is sort of space combat and adventuring in a persistent open universe. So the way I'm looking at it is I sort of want to make one holistic universe that encompasses everything that was great about Privateer and Freelancer, but also what works with that was great about Wing Commander. And so I want you to be able to sort of experience all those things. So it's sort of like you're in a universe that doesn't stop going forward and happening, and is a sort of constantly live. But you want to play your single player story campaign off on the side, you can absolutely do it. So sort of the idea is in this universe, for instance, you can sign up for your military duty, which is one of the ways to earn citizenship, and that in essence is playing the single player story narrative campaign that's the Wing Commander experience, and that's the typical branching mission setup that you would have in Wing Commander, because of course if you're in the military you can't just sort of take off and fly off to another planet. It's like you'd be going AWOL. But the idea is that particular experience we're calling Squadron 42, which was sort of what that cinematic trailer was about. And the 42nd Squadron of the Imperial Navy in this universe is sort of a legendary fighting unit. It's very much like the French Foreign Legion. In fact, that it's always in the toughest areas, trying to hold back the sort of alien hordes that are threatening humanity, and they, somehow manage to pull out in, against all the odds. And to actually be accepted into this squadron is a pretty huge deal, and sort of gives you a sort of certain level of status. It would be like being a Navy SEAL or something. So the goal of the narrative campaign is that you fight the battles very much in a sort of Wing Commander 1, Wing Commander 2 narrative branching style, and then if you manage to succeed at the end, you'll be invited into the squadron, and then when you finish that, you'll be able to muster out. You'll have some credits in your pocket, and you'll sort of have the status of being, an ex-member of the 42nd Squadron. And there's a sort of community of sort of ex-members in the universe, and then you go out and make your fortune in the universe, and we'll do another story campaign in a little bit, just much like the Wing Commander mission packs, and you could always re-up for another tour of duty. And then, so you have that, which is sort of the Wing Commander experience, and then you have sort of the Privateer Freelancer experience, which is the typical, you can fly around, venture, buy goods, sell it, trade, be a merchant, be a pirate, be a mercenary. It's sort of up to you. And obviously the goal in that is to sort of build up your wealth and your ship and its capabilities. So eventually there'll be some real estate that you'll be able to buy, but essentially that's hopefully going to be an ongoing environment that is always changing and adapting. And so I'll get to the next slide.
You're muted. Go ahead.
You're muted.
Duh. So Younique, this goes back to what you were saying earlier, that this part of the vision he's talking about coming out of the squadron, becoming an ex-military person and going off into the world and doing trading and stuff. You're saying all that, you didn't hear all that in the pre-Kickstarter time. That wasn't, you heard everything focused around Squadron 42, chapters of the game, and that was pretty much it. Okay.
So, now they've got this kind of newer vision where he's merging all the games he had produced in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when he went back to the freelancer part and everything, right, where you could go around and do stuff in a little verse or something. Okay, all right, gotcha.
But I don't know to you, it doesn't sound to me like it's all fleshed out right there. He's kind of
it still sounds
pie in
like
the sky right now to see, like, are you going to bite on this or not?
Yeah, okay, gotcha. And again, we want to remind everybody, this is, GDC. This isn't the announcement. This is not the original announcement. This was later. The original announcement was done via the website. This announcement was his public announcement at GDC. Okay?
The pre-Kickstarter website.
Exactly. Okay, here we go.
I already talked about Squadron 42. I always get ahead of myself on these slides. Hang on, one more forward. So one of the keys, and I talked about it in back when we were doing Freelancer, was that I wanted to have sort of a dynamic universe that reacted to the players. And I talked about it when we first announced the game in 1999. And unfortunately, a lot of those features didn't end up happening because it was sort of, that was the stage 2, and it was released in 2003, and Microsoft sort of started to focus on Xbox games and not so much PC games anymore. So I've always wanted to feel like I wanted to finish that off and do it, the way I wanted to do it. I think the CCP guys did a very nice job with what they did on EVE Online, but it's not the style of game that, the first-person sort of visceral Wing Commander, Privateer, Freelancer style. So that's really important. The other aspect of it is not just a sort of dynamic economy, but it's also to have a universe that sort of reacts to what's happening, what the player base is doing out there. So there's several ways that we're going to achieve it. One of the key ways is that we're going to do sort of micro content updates. So one of the core goals of this universe is not to have a big sort of monolithic content update every 1 year.
Muted.
I'm going to stop there because that slide has some stuff there. Some of you may have heard about, at some point they talked about mods and private servers, and now you're seeing where that came from. Now I don't think that's an issue anymore. I think that's, if it happened, God only knows, but I don't think that's an issue anymore. But you also
I think they've gone away.
Yeah, but you also see the aspect of multiplayer. This is not the same thing as MMO, because at that time there was conversation about if me and Younique if Younique was playing Squadron 42, that I could come into Squadron 42 and play with him. That was the multiplayer that they were talking about then, not a, multi-thousands and thousands of people being in
at the same time. Yeah, it was like 2 to 4 people could be in your chapters with you, so you could go around with friends, co-op kind of stuff.
Yep. So just so you know, that's what this is earlier now. We ain't talking about now, but we're trying to tell you guys maybe where some things you may have heard where they came from. Okay. All right. Thank you for those follows, Purple Time and Tech Zero. Thank you guys. Thank you.
So I've always wanted to feel like I wanted to finish that off and do it, the way I wanted to do it. I think the CCP guys did a very nice job with what they did on EVE Online, but it's not the staff into your stories or changing things around a little bit. So it's so the people that are playing feeling like their actions actually have some impact. Or another way to think about it is if you think about the TV model versus the film model. I think that the sort of open world style of game is closer to a TV model than a film model. And that, what I mean is, if someone does a TV series, what they do is they write a Bible and they write 5 or 6 episodes, and then they broadcast it. And then if it's well received, then they get an order from the network and they get to do lots more episodes. But what happens is the writing team on that sort of writing as the episodes have been seen, and they kind of know what the audience likes. So that's why when you see shows, a lot of times you'll see characters get killed off or some characters get bigger roles. That's kind of what you can do in TV that you say can't do in features, because you're sort of live with what's happening. And I think that also can be very applicable to sort of an open world and a universe that I'm trying to build. And I think it can be really great. And to give an example of, say, something else that would be connecting for the people playing this universe, so I mentioned that we would have a star system that would put in the galaxy. Well, we want to actually tell the player base that we put a new jump point, a new star system in. In fact, it would have to be a player that's playing it would have to discover it. So it basically would be an uncharted jump point. And if you've got certain equipment on your ship, or you tend to be someone that wants to be more an explorer, you would be flying near a star, and you would sort of see that there would be this sort of gravitational anomaly, and you'd realize it's an uncharted jump point, and then you could choose to actually chart and fly the jump point, which is difficult. Like be like riding a incredibly gnarly wave on the north shore of in Hawaii somewhere, and if you manage to get to the other side, then your nav computer has recorded all your moves, and then you can sell it at a great profit back to one of the space corporations that will then just be able to sell it to all the players, and they'll automatically be able to jump that nav point. But the really cool thing is that you'll get to name the star system or the nav point after yourself. So, players that discover the new jump points in the star systems will actually become part of the universe. They'll sort of have.
Can you pause for a minute, please?
Cool. So you're going to have the fastcart system. I already know where you're going with this, right?
No, I'm just thinking. I'm listening to him, and I'm imagining being a developer for this game in 2012 and listening to him and thinking, how in the world does he expect us to do all this stuff, right? Yeah. Do you think that's how it was with him?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's some things here that I'm curious about. As you guys know, I believe that based on when I look at the history of the development of this game, about 85% of what Chris talked about, maybe 90%, they've been pulling off. They've been pretty close to it. Now, I am curious about this thing about if Younique finds the wormhole and he sells it to the corporation or to the UEE or whatever, it said that players would have to buy that sucker to find out where it's at. I'm curious as to how he was actually thinking of do that. I don't know if that's still the case, but I mean, don't get me wrong, space is big. You ain't gonna just stumble across an anomaly. But I'm just kind of curious if that's still going to be a part of the game. If I don't want to search for it, I can purchase the location rights to get to it. Or if I don't want to pay the money, I just have to go out there and explore just like Younique did, hoping that I stumble across that anomaly. I'm just curious as to how that will pan out later on.
I think that's still the idea, that's why you've got the beacons out there and they're on or off, and news doesn't travel if they're shut down, right? So you don't get a crime stat if nobody saw it happen, it didn't happen. Right. It's the same with the jump points. If you're the only one that recorded it, if you come back safely and your ship doesn't get exploded, it's in your nav computer, it's in your Moby Glass, it's a piece of information that you own, and you don't have to tell anybody. Maybe somebody else does stumble across it, but if they don't, maybe you bring it back to your corporation and y'all go rape it for all the gold and diamonds and mining that's in there, for 2 months, and then you sell it for big profits.
Yeah, let me respond to something Gladestone's asking. He's like, have you ever played a game where you buy a map in order to find something? That's I'm talking about in Star Citizen, you all know this. When we find stuff in the game now, like when we first found where Jumptown was, people will make videos, they'll put it on Reddit, all the information's there. So my question is, how do you keep that information in such a way that players don't step outside of the immersion of the game and say, if you want to find, fastcart 708, jump point, all you have to do is go here. Then that kills the whole economic dynamic of the game if all I got to do is pull up a YouTube video to find it. So I'm just curious as to how they will protect that information and keep it with the economy, with the gameplay. Younique hit it on the head when he talked about how to do it. I'm just kind of curious to see what Chris was thinking about with that.
I think back then, I mean, it was done back then, but not to the extent that it's done now. Walkthroughs and guides and stuff like that on YouTube wasn't as big as it is now compared to 2012.
Yeah.
So he probably wasn't thinking about YouTube and everything like that.
Yeah, then. But you can't. Right, that part is not in the game. You can't monetize finding a jump point.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you, as soon as you can monetize it, mum's the word. Because if I find a jump point, the only reason you're going to know I found a jump point, because wherever I was hanging out in the game, I ain't going to be there.
Okay.
You're like, well, where's Younique? I was like, I don't know. I ain't seen him in 2 weeks.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
He went out in the mole and he came back with a whole fleet of ships. I don't know where they came from.
Yeah. And Younique, you said something too that Chris said, and I noticed how when Chris said it, he kind of smiled a little bit. He said, when you find a jump point, if you survive it and only come out on the other side. That's another thing that I think people don't think about too. There is still, he's made it very clear that this was to be a danger aspect to when you go through wormholes. And that's even today. It's not just back in 2012. They've always said that until you go through and navigate it where you have a nav computer that navigates through wormholes, which none of us have right now. We don't deal with that right now. There's a chance that you may blow up going through.
Oh yeah, or a chance you may go too close to the edge and either kicked out or explode or what have you. So that's why
you could get kicked out of the wormhole, and you could be
in the wrong place,
kicked out in the wrong place, but also so far out to where you can't
get back.
You don't have enough fuel to get back to be able to get back to the start of the jump point. And so you might have to call, and somebody's like, well, how you get out there, So it's all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, he intends for it to, if you're flying, you have to be able to fly well in this game. And I think you're already seeing that. Like if you're going to fight somebody, you kind of got to be able to fly well,
Okay.
So I think it's going to be just the same in the wormholes when you're jumping through them. There's sort of a tube and twisting and a boundary thing. And if you mess up, because it's going to be manual, you don't get it recorded.
Okay.
And so as much as ships cost in the game, it will be an expensive thing to lose if you don't do it well.
Good point. All right, here we go.
Just becoming that sort of viral discovery and becoming part of the fabric of the universe is actually really cool. And so those aspects I think are going to make the universe really interesting. And then the other thing that is important is I think the multiplayer aspect, if done right, really is something you can do today that I couldn't have done 10 years ago. And so we're going to do several things. First of all, even on the single player side, the Squadron 42 side of it, you can play the single player offline. Single player, you don't have to be online for it. But if you do play it online, your friends can jump in and essentially sort of be wingmen during missions. And I don't know if many people here have played Demon's Souls, but it was actually a game that I quite liked. But they had a really great approach to the way they were sort of handling this sort of single player / multiplayer. And when you went to take out one of the bosses, people could help you out and join you in, and they would get some bonus and points for it. But we'll definitely sort of have a really cool multiplayer on the sort of campaign narrative side. And then in the open world, we're sort of focusing a lot on how you and your friends can fly together. And so like an example would be if you're flying from one planet to another planet and you get attacked along the way, you get sort of put out into what we call battle.
Thanks for the follow.
And in this battle instance, we will always save slots for friends of whoever's in the battle instance, so you can sort of put a distress call to your friends list, and if they're close by, they can sort of warp in and help you out. So it's sort of like calling in the cavalry. So think of it like, if you ever play World of Tanks or Battlefield, if you get online and you see your friends playing in an instance, you can jump into it, but sometimes they're all full up. Well, what we're sort of saying is we're building it in such a way that we'll always reserve slots for friends so they can come in. And then on top of that, what we're going to do is, and I'll show you when I'll get into it, I'll show you some of the technology. But we've spent a lot of time building a technology so it's sort of scalable on a spaceship size, so we can handle the small spaceships like a fighter craft that you're flying, but we can also handle much bigger spaceships. So in that trailer you're seeing that you're flying off a big carrier. Well, that's simulated and modeled as a vehicle just like the fighters are, and we can be anywhere in between that. So in this sort of open world universe, you'll be able to sort of buy or fly around a bigger ship. So think a Millennium Falcon style ship where you can have, you'll have the cockpit and you'll have some turrets and some corridors inside it, and you could be flying it and you can have a few of your friends hanging out on your ship as you're flying through the galaxy. So you can say, hey, we're going to fly on a difficult mission. Will you man the turrets for me? And a few of the bigger ones will even have a small hangar bay that will have a fighter in. So if you come under attack, someone could jump in the fighter, someone could man the turrets and fly around. So that's always something I've wanted to do in a game, and you can do it now. And so we're going to be doing that in this. So those are all features that I think are pretty cool. And let's go on to the next slide. Guess we'll all need you to enlist here. But so I'm going to jump into the game now because I want to sort of show this is.
Can you pause it real quick, just a second?
Level that we spent about a year sort of working the workflows and some of the technical issues out. But I want to.
Yeah. I just want to say, outside of the single player kind of things, you got to understand, Chris is standing up there. He's never done any of that in his life at that point. And we all know, right? All the Wing Commander people know. We're like looking at him like, what are you talking about? You told us it's going to be like Wing Commander and chapter and story through the thing, and maybe with your friends coming in. But now I think actually he's making the stuff up on the fly while he's standing right there on that podium.
Well, let me say this. You mentioned you make a good point that sometimes people forget that there are some things that are done in Star Citizen that we have seen in other games. And then there is the other side of Star Citizen that is truly innovation, right? Things that not only has Chris not done, but things that maybe have not even been done in the industry. And I think sometimes people don't really think about the game that way. They kind of base it upon the way games have been developed previously, where engine is in place, staffing's in place, certain aspects of technology and development are in place. And here's somebody who's saying, I always equated, and you guys have heard me say this on the show before, it's like George Lucas. George Lucas, every time he came forward with his storyboards for his films, he would bring all of his department heads in. He'd say, this is what we're going to do, blah, 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 blah. And then everybody say, okay, fine. And he'd say, thanks, guys. He'd walk out. And then everybody would say, how the hell are we going to do this? We don't even have the technology to do it. That was my point I was trying
to make earlier.
Yeah, and his tech people, the not the model makers, but the people who had to do the technology, the animation, they were like, dude, they had to build literally the technology, even though, George Lucas was like, this is what we're going to do, blah, 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 blah. And so I think that, and again, we know how much time it took for them to do what they had to do for film. Who's that? Hey, thank you for that sub. We appreciate that. DK Wildcat, thank you.
Let me say one more thing.
Thank you for the membership too on YouTube. We appreciate that. Yeah, Younique.
So Chris is talking about ships coming into other ships, right? And I can tell you, like when the first time you see the Bengal carrier, and I said, hey, look at those colors, and that is a reference because back then, there was a shortage of colors. Yep. The color palette was small, right? And we're all thinking like, wow, because Wing Commander was done like in a 4 to 6 color palette kind of thing. So we're like, wow, he's got 8 colors in that thing. That's right. That was like, oh my God, it's pushing the envelope just to have 8 colors on the screen at the same time. And everything had to share those colors, Yeah. Oh,
go ahead.
No, so I'm just like, you're thinking that mindset of, hey, he's got a maximum 8 colors on the screen at one time and everything has to share it. And if you have 2 sides, then half of the colors got to go to the other guy unless you're making ship all black, And then suddenly it's, you're going to be on the ship with your friend. And oh, by the way, your third friend is going to be able to fly ship inside your ship. And it just goes on like that's ever been done in any game ever.
Yeah. To your point, just that single scene, a ship flying inside of another ship and landing. We've never seen that before. You've seen cinematics, but I'm talking about players doing it. We've seen
not players doing it. You see,
cinematics.
cut scenes and cinematics, or AI-driven things,
Yeah.
simulations to do it, but no player's been inside another ship
Yeah.
while they're in a ship.
And to your point, Griffin, about company being established and having all these assets and everything like that, that's part of the journey for the past 10 years of Star Citizen, is that a lot of ISC isn't just about how ships together, but how ships come together, but how tools come together to make the game what it is. So a lot of thought have been put into the development of this game and how to make the development of the game easier and more feasible.
Yeah.
So yeah, tools and making tools is the big thing. R&D basically, yeah.
Yeah, R&D. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the other thing too. When you watch that video, and I think Younique mentioned it, or somebody mentioned it in chat earlier, when you watch that video, if you didn't know better, if you didn't know the history, you would think everything was in place already, that there was already a studio, that there were dozens of people working, you know, and we don't realize that there were very few people. Chris had a handful of people that spent almost 2 years working out just that presentation alone. And so that's why a lot of people, when they see that from, 2024, like, when you watch E3, right? When you go to E3 and something comes out, you don't assume it's only 8 people, working on this elaborate thing, And so it's very easy for people to say, oh, we saw this great presentation in 2012. Where's the game? They forget that Chris was a coder. He spent time himself putting that thing together, which is kind of mind blowing in and of itself too. But anyway, we're going to get back into the video because we got some good things going on in chat. Gladestone, if somebody takes your ship and leaves you stranded, brother, you better be able to call a beacon because you're stranded. That's what's going to happen in the game. Answer your question. Okay, here we go.
Or your next beacon will take over. Because
there you go.
That's a space person.
Death of a space person, right? There you go.
Sort of shows some of the aspects of it, and also show you that what you saw in that movie was actually game assets.
Okay, let me stop. Glade, I got to dispel something that you said because I've heard other people say this. They say they wasted 4 years. Anytime you're doing something new and different, you don't go in and everything you do is right. Everything. Every business, when they're starting, anybody who's opened a business has found ways to make mistakes, mismanage money, should have done something differently, should have hired somebody differently. That is a part of business. And I don't know why people think that when Chris Roberts started this game, he was supposed to do everything perfect. Not only was there problems with the engine, because they didn't throw the engine out, by the way, but not only were there problems with that, if you remember, they had hired multiple companies that they contracted out. And a lot of the contractors that they had brought in did stuff wrong, which is why everything ended up being brought under the umbrella. Ilphonics. Yeah, they had subcontractors. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they did with good intention, hoping things would go right. But as the depth of the game was increased and expanded, now I'm not talking about no crazy stuff. I'm just talking about as they started to build with technology and things changed, as the engine changed, the requirements change. And that happens with any business. So I don't like when people, and this is me personally, when people want to say, oh, they spent 4 years and it was a waste. No, it was not. It was not a waste, because sometimes that happens when you're trying to do something different. Now, if you want to produce the same old crap out there and play the same old crap and 6 months later be done with it and moving on to the next crap, well, yeah, shouldn't make no mistakes. But when you're
just
doing
trying to figure out, trying to figure out what the game that you have now, what it would actually be with CryEngine and 32-bit.
Oh, yeah. Well,
versus
go back and look at the Morrow tour. Go back and look at the Morrow tour that we all thought looked so fabulous and great back then. It was just a little glitchy. You look at it now, it looks horrible. Imagine if we had gotten Star Citizen back in 2015 or 16. You'd be freaking playing something like No Man's Sky right now. You wouldn't care less about it. So let's keep it real with this whole thing. We're talking about a development process, and I know we all want to get the game in our hands. I understand that. Everybody does. I'm older than half the people in this room. I don't want to be in my grave. I want to play the game. But I also want the game to be something that lasts, like an Eve or a World of Warcraft that's been around for 10, 15, 20 years. Not something that I play for 1 year, and next thing you know, I'm worried about playing Starfield. So that's my preaching for the day. All right, that's my preaching for the day with that whole speech, okay? All right.
Hallelujah. Amen.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so you're up here. So I'm actually on the bridge of that carrier, and walk guess I'll. Oop. Fell down too many stairs. Down more stairs. I guess if I go out the side here, I can sort of
falling through the floor.
You can see out onto the actual main carrier there.
Some things never change.
Exactly.
I'm going to cheat and sort of walk myself to the hangar bay really quickly. So here I'm sort of on the hangar bay, and so one of the things that I'm kind of happiest with the sort of level of fidelity that we're doing here. I'll sort of we'll spin around, but so my pilot character here. So he's built out of about 100,000 faces. So a typical current gen console game will have about 10,000
This is from 2012. This is in 2012.
So the difference you get with this is you get all this extra sort of piping and tubing and detail.
Let me put the link in the chat.
Thanks.
You wouldn't be able to get in a current gen style game. And then also if I'm looking around in the here in the hangar bay, the level of sort of detail. Oops, oh, that's good. Prototype was still working, but you're looking around here and the level of detail, but the actual hangar itself is about just under about 2 million polys, and each one of these ships themselves, if we go take a look at them, I'll get into one to fly, they're about 300,000. So the ships, that's again about 10x what you have in a current gen console game, and it just allows you to have a lot more detail, sort of the paneling and the stuff, and it all holds up really close. But I'm going to go and get into my fighter. Style in, and it wouldn't be. Got to have a cockpit. It's got to be real. It's got to be detailed.
Look at the MFDs.
So this is kind of what I'm talking about. The level of immersion. I mean, I think I actually was. Kind of regretted in Wing Commander 4 that we cut the cockpits out.
All that animation would piss you off right now.
To get them all done. But I mean, the whole thing is modeled fully in 3D. And
if you're trying to hurt and get somewhere to help somebody, you ain't trying to push all them buttons and stuff.
Yeah, okay, not that quick. Yeah.
Everything you're doing will be mimicked inside the cockpit.
Check out those sound effects.
Man, that looks so dated now.
It looked amazing.
Oh, cool.
So I was walking around this cockpit, which is actually I'll go here. Try not to normally play at this angle, but it's again it's exactly the same when I was talking about the level of fidelity. So the ship itself.
If I'm correct, this is like
past, you'll see
680.
the bridge there.
GTX
It's like that was the
680
bridge I was
time.
wandering around.
Yep.
So if we get past it, see if I get it. See all the folks in it or not. It's kind of hard. I don't want. Oops, I'm going to hit this side. That probably won't be so good. But the idea, I mean, like the idea would be in the multiplayer side. You literally.
I don't even think the CPUs were like quad processors at the time.
At the most, if they were, right?
Could wave to each other.
Yeah, at the most.
Maybe 4 core, 6 core, maybe.
But they were
sort of
coming.
Notice, there wasn't any loading screen. It all holds up. I'm there in first person or third person at that level of fidelity, and then I get into my cockpit, and I've got let's find some light.
Lamar, thank God we don't play this game.
So, there's light, but so yeah, like I'm in my cockpit. So if you think Wing Commander style,
Look at the screen
my
time.
joystick, you can see me do everything. I can see my feet on the pedals.
To Younique's point, look at the minimal colors too.
Foot on
Yeah.
the throttle. And if I'm changing something around, you'll see my thumb. So every action that you're going to do in the final game, you'll actually do. You'll see your character do it. He flips the switch. You want to turn on it. You want to turn the weapons display on. You'll have to switch. Your character will actually have to switch, and it will come out. So it's all about making you feel immersive. It's sort of like the next step of what a long time ago I did in Wing Commander, where I put you in the cockpit, and instead of saying you were.
So I just want to say this is something that I think Jared Huckabee pointed out in one of the Vice Citizens. Right here, instead of you controlling the ship, you're controlling the pilot that controls the ship, and even then, that was the goal all along. It didn't occur to me back then. They're like, I see it happening, but it didn't click. But ever since you say that, I can see that was the plan all along.
Which is different than any other game, because any other game, whatever animation's happening with your avatar, that's all it is. It's just an animation for them. But the degree that you're moving the stick, like you said, or anything else, that's what you're controlling, which is pretty amazing. A lot of work, but we understand why they're doing it now, Okay.
52% damaged, it was like you would see the cockpit smoking, you would feel that. But of course, that was much more primitive. It was VGA 320 by 200. This is 1080p with millions of colors. But it's part of it's the level of detail and immersion. If I sort of come out on the ship itself, it's the same. It's like just like little things. So like silly things. But if I'm like moving my laser Gatlings around, the wires are all deforming, and if I'm flying, you'll sort of see my vectored thrust on the back that it's all sort of moving. And let's see if I go here, shows a few things. But the idea is, this like all the craft that you fly are modeled to this sort of level of fidelity. So this particular fighter has about 300 parts, and about 60 plus of them are all sort of moving. So let's see what I'm doing if I'm pull that a little bit. Classic Star Wars style stuff, but if we go in here, I'll sort of also deploy my missile bays, and the same thing. You can sort of, if I fire the missiles, and they're actually all set up very much like a real missile would be. So there's an explosive force, and they go out, and then it sort of hits the acceleration. But it's all sort of the aspect of sort of the realism. I mean, the same thing. I can sort of punch in, and it's like a level of detail that typically you haven't sort of seen before in at least definitely in console games. What you can do on a high-end PC, but let's see if I'll get in closer. Fly a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it's just if you want to come in right up really close, it's going to hold up all the way in really close, and then if you want to come out wide, I mean, it's the same thing, and the same on the carrier. The carrier itself was, I think the carrier itself is about 7 million polys, where this is about 300,000. So it's just all, that's all what you can do when you're sort of going crazy on the. You're not worrying about fitting inside 512 megabytes and working on 7-year-old technology. So one of the things that I'm kind of like most excited by is the way we're doing the flight model and the sort of physics simulation here. So so just to show you, so like here's my ship, and it's modeled. It's a complete, proper, full rigid body physical simulation, and actually it rotates and it moves and maneuvers around, changes orientation, all like a real spaceship would do. So I know it looks like it's got wings, but basically what's happening is force. Like so, here I'm yawing. You can see the thrusters, the vector thrusters, are all sort of articulating and actually.
Yeah, you were back in 2012. That's
in that
amazing.
direction. So if I'm going to pitch, you'll see.
The only sketchy part is that it had the fans on the front of the ship,
same if
like to suck air into
Yeah,
it.
zombie pig said that those were there to cool off the guns.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy, right?
Rolling, you'll see the thrust, and so as I'm flying around, what's happening is the ship's sort of fly-by-wire system. So it's sort of set up very much like
people like a monster and dinosaur on National Geographic.
Trying to figure all that out in space. Because to actually go, okay, I got to put a force on this part of my rigid body, and I have to put a force over here on this part of the rigid body. That's just too much for any player to do, and it'd be too much for a human being to do. It's why an F-35 has a fly-by-wire system, because there's no way a real human pilot could actually fly it, because it's dynamically unstable. So the computer's like moving all the control surfaces all the time, and it's basically taking the input of the pilot, saying, okay, well, he wants to pitch, he wants to roll, he wants to go here. And so that the philosophy of that is very much in this. And so what happens is your ship's computer, when you say, I want to pitch,
people get jokes in chat.
Okay, I want to pitch.
I see.
And the sort of flight computer goes, okay, that means I need to put a force here and put a force here, and it actually talks to all the thrusters on the ship. So this particular one has eight maneuvering jets, 4 on the top, right, and there's 4 on the bottom down here. And so it basically polls them. It says, okay, I need a force over here, I need a force here, and which one of you can get there, and how quickly will it take you, and how much force can you give me? And then all the thrusters sort of give the information back to the flight computer, and the flight computer goes, okay, well, all right, I crunched all the numbers, and I need you to go here, and I need you to go here, and I need you to go here. And what's really cool about that is that in the old school of making a wing commander, or a privateer, or a freelancer style game, you basically said, okay, this ship would roll at 30 degrees a second, or this would pitch at 40 degrees a second. Well, with this system, there's none of that. It actually doesn't have any conception of like what your roller pitch is. It's all based on what your mass is, what thrusters are, kind of how quickly they can articulate, how much thrust they can deliver. And so what's really cool about that is that what that means is when you're, say, in a combat situation and you actually get, you get hit on your front top right thruster, or you get hit on your, back bottom thruster or something, it will have a completely different effect on your sort of flight envelope. So they'll, it's a level of fidelity that hasn't been done before. And the other thing that's really cool about that is that it really plays well into the bigger sort of Star Citizen universe where you're sort of building and modifying your ship, because it means that you can have like a huge amount of possibilities in how you're building and customizing your ship. And it also means...
All right. So this version of Star Citizen compared to 318 that's coming, if you change Chris Roberts' voice that you're hearing in this video to Derek Smart's, now what do you think? You can roll it. You would think this is a Derek Smart version.
Oh God, okay.
Why?
That's what it's like. That's how much it's changed.
Yeah.
You're like, ugh.
Yeah, it's changed, that's for sure. Okay. On that note, okay.
Is that there's no particular strong, definite, this is how we're going to win build. Because, for instance, to give you an example, you could build a tank of a spaceship with lots of armor, lots of shields, and heavy weapons. Cost you a bunch of money to build that, but someone who's a good pilot may have built a much lighter build that's really maneuverable, and yeah, if you hit this guy, then he'll probably blow up, but it's going to be pretty difficult to hit him. If he's a good pilot, maybe he can get 20 hits on you before you get one hit on him, and he takes you out. So there's a very much rock, paper, scissors base, because, if you add weight to your ship, it's going to affect your sort of performance envelope. So even just, in this situation, if you once you've fired a lot of your weapons or your missiles, you'll be slightly lighter. And we're also going to let you scope into it, so you don't have to do it, but if you want to.
What are you hearing?
Sound robotic?
Some sort of robotic audio.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Not just me.
Okay.
You can adjust
How about now?
your power
Still
ratio.
I'm getting it.
You might want to reload and make sure you have the timestamp.
It's not even a reload. That's running from video from my computer. You guys getting bad audio? It's the episode in itself. Oh, it's in the episode. Okay.
Oh, it's in the episode. Okay, no mind then. My bad.
You can be in a tight turning dogfight, and you decide, okay, I'm going to take the risk and drop some power to my shields to put a bit more power to my thrusters to maybe try and get an extra degree or so in that turning battle. So I just think because it's built as a system, there isn't one fast car. I'm playing the video from my computer. And also has a lot more combinations. So in terms of an open persistent universe, or even in terms of playing a more Lincoln style game, I think it's going to open up a whole range of strategies and combat in space, right? So I think that's great, and that's something that obviously you can do with today's tech that you couldn't have done when I was making the last games I was making, just because it's pretty processor intensive, but now you've got the horsepower to do it. So let's see, I think just for fun, where's my carrier gone? I'm going to bring a few enemy ships in. But this part's the sort of very final bit, so the full combat stuff's not all the HUD and everything isn't fully in, but I thought it'd be fun to sort of see all the ships attacking the carrier, much like you saw in the sort of cinematic sequence, which was obviously a lot of this, but staged with nice, taking the best shots for it. Yeah.
How much you want to bet he's playing with a gamepad?
It's the same level of detail on the big carriers that you have. The same thing. I mean,
but Roberts plays with
I think this particular carrier has 150
gamepad kind of thing. He's a big gamepad
and of
user.
Course, they all move, they all articulate. I think there's 4 different types. There's the AA gun. There's a sort of a bigger sort of heavy-duty ship-to-ship one, and then there's the equivalent of a Flannex. Sort of point defense system, and there's a missile turret. But again, like I'm saying, this is
You mean a phalanx.
cinematic
Yeah,
sequence.
phalanx, yeah.
It's pretty. This is all the same stuff. It's the same assets and everything else. And let me see if I can get. Fortunately, this is the bit where the HUD. Daisy.
Oh,
My HUD. Yeah, I'm gonna get killed it somewhere if I go around that. My the full HUD targeting stuff isn't actually integrated in yet, so it's kind of hard for me to see who I'm shooting.
is he just button mashing?
Yeah, basically. I mean, he was selling, and now you see he's not saying anything. He's drifted into gamer mode now. He's not talking to anybody. He's just trying to dodge those space potatoes that are out there.
He's going faster than me. That's not fair.
Thank God those aren't the sound effects for the guns anymore.
All right. Well, I was hoping to blow one up for you, but I think they've all kind of run away. We've got about 15 minutes left, and so kind of what I wanted to do was take some questions and sort of, and just before I was going to do that, I was going to talk to you about kind of why I'm sort of showing what I'm showing now at this stage, because I'm actually showing you a build maybe a year before you typically would do so. So, you know, in the old-fashioned sort of typical publisher model, you would basically spend another year working on this, and then you would go to E3 and you would do a reveal, and then you sort of have your last year you'd lead up to releasing it. But part of what I'm trying to do here is, one, I'm coming back to make a game. I'm very focused on making it about PC. I feel like the games that I made in the past were obviously, at the heart, they were always PC games. I felt like, one of the things that Wing Commander and the other games I made was all about sort of pushing what you could do on the PC and sort of showing sort of the aspiration and the dream of it all. And I felt like over the last few years, especially as a player, I kind of feel like as a PC gamer, I'm kind of underserved. I can either play ports of a console game. So, I mean, I have a console, and if a game was built for console, I buy the console version. I don't buy the PC port of it because I'm getting a port of something that was built for, 7-year-old tech. So I don't feel like people are really pushing the PC like they could. I think there's a lot of, I guess they're coming back to attack me, a lot of PC gamers that sort of feel like they would like to get, that's my guess anyway, that they would like to get something that really kind of shows off or pushes the hardware, and there I died and got killed by the nasty enemies. I put this together in a way that I can make it sort of outside the traditional publisher system, because most of the big publishers aren't very interested in building a PC-specific game, and they're also not particularly that interested in building something that's a sort of space sim game, because it's a genre that hasn't been big for the last 10 years or so. I tend to think that the genre is can be as vibrant and valuable as it always has been. It's just that there hasn't really been anything that's been particularly compelling recently, and so that's kind of what my goal is, to sort of come back and say, hey, I'm going to do a PC game like the old Wing Commanders I did, which was, if you've got a great PC, this is really going to show it off, and you're not going to be able to get this experience anywhere else, and it's going to be immersive, and it's going to be a great game and everything else. So as part of that,
Let me stop there for a second. It's something that Chris says that I think is vital. He and David Braben both started on getting these projects going right about the same time. And it is amazing to see that after they started going back and bringing back their vision of what gaming was in space, over those next 10 years, we saw all these space games come out. And he's right about that. Nobody was thinking about space games until he and Braben went back because of their legacy and their history in gaming. And all of a sudden, you started seeing all these other space games that came out over the last 10 years. So whether he was projecting the future or whether his work brought the future forward is interesting to see as far as I'm concerned.
No, he was dragging them all forward.
Yeah.
Out there, they knew because of his reputation. If he's doing it, we better be doing something too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And can I just mention one game in particular? Call of Duty in Space. No one ever saw that coming.
Oh, yeah. That was crazy. Which Space, thank you for those 5 subs. Hey, thank you for gifting. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Where's mine?
Here we go.
It's in the mail.
I've put together a group of private investors, but as part of my deal with that is to validate that people want this kind of game, want a high-end PC game, not a sort of free-to-play or a social game, that we're going to do an element of crowdfunding in addition to the financing, because obviously this is a much bigger budget than you would have in a typical small sort of crowdfunded game. But what the concept is that we're going to have a sort of limited number of the people that really like this and really sort of believe in this be part of the process much earlier than you would normally be. So you would, you in essence come in and sort of pre-buy your spaceship, and then you're part of you're getting a lot more. You're basically involved in the development process in terms of seeing what's actually going on and really being informed. Which I think if you've looked at the Roberts Space Industries site, it's we definitely do that, and we're going to be doing more of that going forward. But you're also going to be playing the game and builds much sooner than you would do if you're not doing this. So the full timeline to get the full big persistent universe and everything out is about 2 years. But about 1 year into it, we're going to have sort of the multiplayer build, the alpha multiplayer build that you'll get to play. And then about another 18 months in, there'll be sort of the alpha beta of the persistent universe that you'll get to play if you're part of this early community that's sort of signing up early and saying, hey, you know what, I believe in space games, I believe in PC games, and I'd like to be part of this. And so I'm kind of announcing this now.
Let me stop there. Just so you guys will know, this is where when people talked about 2014, this is where that number came from, okay? His projection was that they'd be able to do this within a couple of years, and 2014 was one of those original target dates.
Right.
Citizen Shenanigans,
understand
thank
the
you
amount
as
of money
well.
they were looking for,
Thanks for
for the scale of the game that they were thinking about then. Is nowhere near how much money they collected and blew past that thing, which made them change their thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of what was possible.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Kickstarter page right now, and it says estimated delivery November 2014. So yeah, that was put in stone way back when.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty.
As part of the, I guess, in the old days, this would be my green light meeting with, at EA or Microsoft or somewhere, where I'd say, this is what I'm working on, and this is what I want to finish. Will you guys back me to finish it? And that's kind of what happens at a publisher. They just say, okay, yeah, that looks cool. We think we could sell X million copies, and so we'll back you. And all a publisher really is doing is it's basically saying, I think there's people that will like this and want to pay for it. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, but I'm doing it to all you guys, because at the end of the day, you're the ones that would be playing it and want to play it, and I'm hoping that a lot of you have want to be in this universe, because I do, and I kind of want to play this game. So I'm sort of saying, if this is something you're excited by, then please come to robertspaceindustries.com and participate and support us. So that's my pitch. I'm not very good at the pitch side of things. But we have about 10 minutes left, and I thought that it would be good to do Q&A for if anyone has some questions. I'd be happy to answer them. So I'll turn over to the question side. Talk like someone in publishing.
Yeah, mind you, I want you to take note of how many people are sitting in the audience when you see this video.
So the maneuvering thrusters, can they be intentionally disabled to do like some of the Starbucks style maneuvers and like Battlestar?
Yeah. So all the different pieces are separate components on the ship, and so they can all be they're all simulated and they're all damaged and all the rest of stuff. But you can also it's kind of what I was saying. There's a baseline of it'll fly for you, but you'll be able to you'll be able to sort of switch off some parts. So for instance, you could like disable them so you could sort of go on a sort of slide and then you could turn them back in and then your ship would take over. So the idea is there will be lots of moves and strategies in terms of how you dogfight. Because I kind of wanted, it's actually one of the big challenges of a space game is how you, in a multiplayer fashion, add enough like detail and nuance to actually make it sort of challenging in terms of different strategies to achieve different ends. And so that's kind of why I'm excited about it, and you're definitely going to be able to do that.
Just back here. It almost sounds like, and just make sure I've got this right, it almost sounds like you're taking a hybrid approach for the end game between EVE Online, where you've got economy driving things, and then a more traditional MMORPG like, say, World of Warcraft or Guild Wars, where you get to a certain point and then you kind of have access to more story points. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, I'd say so. I mean, I think there's a combination where there's an attempt to try and do stuff on a procedural manner that I couldn't do to the level. So I think you can sort of simulate systems, and if you simulate them really well, they're kind of cool. In the old days, it was pretty primitive in how you'd simulate them, so it wasn't that interesting. Now you can do some stuff, I even think, on the NPC and AI side that could actually be pretty interesting. But yeah, it's kind of a hybrid. So the idea is that you have the big universe that's has a lot of sort of procedural elements to it, and then you're sort of spicing it up here and there with sort of narrative bits that you're dropping in, and it's sort of, I think it's a good combination for me. It's the sort of game I want because it sort of allows you to have the big open world, but then also sort of feels like it's got a bit of a personal touch, which is, for me, that's always important. I sort of feel like you have to be connected to the world to really sort of get lost in it.
Okay, so then to expand on that, I have a coworker who I respect his opinions about MMORPGs very much, and he played BioWare's Star Wars game, and he opined that its major downfall was that once you got to the end game, there really was no content, and they blew through the content, getting to that end game much quicker than BioWare anticipated. So you feel like this dynamic micro update system will kind of alleviate that?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, the Old Republic issue is that, essentially it's an incredibly well executed single player game that millions of people can play, and that in terms of updating content is it's a nightmare. It's great content, but it requires a huge amount of work. So I think you're much better served in being smart about how you set your, like in the case of this, how you set your galaxy up, how you put different factions together, and you sort of put systems in place that, I'll give you an example. So for instance, it's not just about having an economy. So we're sort of simulating, the idea is to simulate the galaxy like a real world would be. So for instance, if you're trading close to Earth and the planet's near there, they're right near the sort of center of the empire, and there's a lot of law and order and sort of military presence. So there isn't really an opportunity for other players to basically do PvP or take out new players. But if you're trading there, it's very safe as a merchant. But when you land, say, on Earth, you'll be paying landing tariffs, and you'll be paying tariffs on the goods you sell, because someone has to pay for the infrastructure, someone has to pay for the law and order that's happening there. Now, of course, if you don't want to do that, there's other areas of the galaxy that don't have the same level of law and order, that don't have any of that. But of course, obviously, they're a lot more risky, because those are the areas that, pirates aren't really, there's no one keeping the pirates in check and everything else. So it's much like, the idea is to sort of simulate this universe like a real world. So there's trades and, there's pluses and minuses to everything. And I think then when you start to do that and you put those tools in a world, then, and you enable the player base to almost sort of help keep it alive and create content, I think that you sort of can avoid the problems that you have with sort of the Old Republic. And to be honest with you, it's, this is a Privateer Wing Commander style, so it's not about getting to level 80 or anything. There is no idea of level 80 in this style of game. There is basically, you earn money, you upgrade your ship, which is sort of equivalent of your character, and then you can later on buy, say you can get an asteroid mining station, or you can get a private penthouse on one of the planets. But it's not about, okay, I need a rush to get myself to level 80 and then what my end game is. It's a different sort of philosophy. And I think at the higher levels, It's going to be more about putting the players in opposition to each other and creating divisions and rifts between the players and factions in such a way that they'll sort of operate amongst each other, which is what, you know, the thing that EVE Online does very well. That's kind of how they keep that universe going.
Can you pause, please?
I have a technical question about the
Yeah, so he's almost speaking directly to me. I didn't get to see this then in 2012, but I was playing Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I'm a day one player for Star Wars: The Old Republic. We rushed through the content, got to the end game so quickly. BioWare didn't know what to do with us. So yeah, I finished it in, like, I want to say within 2 weeks. I'm quicker than 2 weeks. So yeah, this is speaking to me. So yeah, it is interesting now how. I'm listening to this back then, how we had the plan laid out, and essentially that's how it's panning out right now in the PU. People mining, people bounty hunting, not really in the game, but you know they have all these aspects and professions in the game and it's mostly skill based instead of level based. So yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and it also says that you're not pigeonholed. Like when we play KOTOR, SWTOR, whatever. You know, you pick a particular type of whatever you want to be and you take that path, right? This whole idea of being able to, if I feel like mining today, I can mine today. If I want to do mercenary tomorrow, I can do mercenary. If I want to do salvage or trading, that gives it a lot more life as well. You know, there's so many different things that you can do in game. And not just that, when I want to play solo, I can play solo. If I want to play multi, I can play multi. There's a lot of things that they're trying to put in. But I also think that the curated side of it, where someone mentioned earlier about, it was a good, funny line that they said, I forgot who it was, so please forgive me if I don't give you credit, but they said players are like locusts. You know, it's hard to keep up enough content for them because they eat up content very quickly. So there's this balance between what happens in worlds like EVE, where there's player-driven content that comes up, as well as the content that CIG produces, which is another factor why we need to have the studio to continually put things out. In EVE, there was one point where they introduced, I can't think of what the group was called, guys. You know, there are 4 races in EVE, but they introduced some other thing that the devs ran. Remember that? And that brought a new aspect of the game because it was something that we didn't expect, and it changed the dynamic of how we played the game. And I'm hoping that they'll do the same thing. You know, we've already got the lore of multi-races and different stuff, but I think as there's expansion, we find other areas to explore and do things. I'm hoping there's stuff that we have never heard of that we run into that makes us want to go out there and do more in the game. Mal Carey, thank you so much for that sub. We appreciate it.
It's not Dust 5114. He's talking about the race, the 5th race.
Yeah.
Highly advanced.
You know, they have those white ships, the real cool white ships. I can't think of the name of them now, but
can't think of the name, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And Jay, thank you for correcting. Bounty hunting is in the game. My bad. I'm not a bounty hunter, so that's why I don't partake in that. So yeah.
Okay.
The network.
Jovians. Thank you. Yes, the Jovians. Oh, good memory.
In a game like World of Warcraft, you don't have to share that much data between client and server.
Look how many people are in the audience.
Where's your character and what is he doing right now? But here you mentioned that
I got all empty
ship has like
chairs.
100 turrets, and something like that would have to be disseminated to every client. Have you run into any technical problems getting that data to flow freely and issues like that?
Well, no, actually, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because I would actually argue with you that the setup of this style of game is much easier to do than a World of Warcraft, because in a World of Warcraft, you know, you have whatever it is, 1,000, 2,000 people in your shard, and you've got to worry about all those.
I think those people in the front seat are people that were helping them build the game. They were just put there to help
isn't necessarily
offer those questions.
But you've got a lot of them. So this is the way you should think about this on a multiplayer technical side. It's a lot closer to, say, Battlefield 3 or World of Tanks, and the actual, the stuff, the combat that you saw here in the multiplayer system, you can't be
Solari, thank you.
What we call a balance.
Thanks for the subscription.
So it's going to be, like a freelancer or a Battlefield, where it's somewhere between, say, 60 and 100 and something players. But of course, space is big, right? So in the actual galactic sort of server level, all the player base is in it. You're not on different worlds or shards. It's just that if you're flying out in space between planet A and planet B, and the galactic server basically goes, okay, well, you're flying from planet A to planet B, and this other person's flying from this planet to this planet. They've intersected, and they're going to be in conflict. So it creates an instance in space, and of course, space is huge; it's infinite. So there's no way in this system that you say, I'm going to go to exactly this coordinate. So basically, it creates these battle instances, and they exist for as long as the conflict exists, and then it's gone. So just sort of think of the persistent galaxy being more like a really smart matchmaking system built on top of what would happen in World of Tanks and Battlefield, that's sort of keeping track of your overall status, what your location is, what the money you have, and all the rest of the stuff. But the sort of high fidelity like data traffic for the combat stuff is sort of in those sort of temporary battle instances. That's much more like a sort of, like I said, World of Tanks or Battlefield.
How do you think it's going to be like near Earth, where it's going to be a very busy system, I would think, as far as handling these high poly art assets, or at least what's very high poly compared to what we see now? When you are playing multiplayer and there's, say, 60 or so characters all interacting in that particular area where it's not creating that instance, that's persistent in your persistent world.
Okay, well, so I mean, here's the other. See, I'm giving some tricks away on the space side, but there's a big advantage to making this kind of game over making a typical, say, first-person or third-person game, is that you don't really have to, the environment's pretty cheap, right? It's space. So you spend, your processing power, your GPU power on the spaceship or the character, and then the size of the spaceships means that by the time you get in close enough to the 300,000 polys of the fighter you're in or the craft that you're in, it's pretty much filling the screen. So you're not going to be able to have 60 other ones all at that level of resolution all on the screen at once. So what would happen is, yeah, you can have 60 people in there, but if you were close enough on one to have that level of resolution, the other ones are all being rendered at a much, much, much lower level of resolution. And that's sort of the advantage of these big objects, right? So it's different than if we were saying it was a first-person shooter game and we were having 100 or 200 characters running around shooting each other all at 100,000 polys. Yeah, there would be a problem, because you literally could get a lot of these characters all on the screen at once at that resolution, and it would be harder to push that data around. But because you're flying spaceships, and spaceships have sort of size and volume, it's you can't really fit that many of them on screen at once. So you sort of alleviate the technical issue of having too many polys at one when everyone comes together in the same spot, because there's just so many ships you can fit in a certain volume. That's kind of the way it works.
So you are one of the very few high-profile figures in the video games industry that has started in the video game industry, went to the movie industry as a producer, and now coming back. What would you say is the key thing that you and RSI are bringing to this project that other developers and publishers would say, we have the movie industry experience, and we're bringing the cinematic experience to you in this game? What would you say, that you're bringing sets you apart from those claims?
Well, I sort of hit on it a little earlier. I mean, I think the thing that I learned the most when I was, spent about 10 years making movies is that there's an attention to detail, and by the way, it's not on things that you would think are obvious at all. So if you're not really, you're not making movies, you're not sort of into it, you sort of view the sort of high level stuff, the obvious stuff, but there's a huge amount of work that goes in on a whole bunch of really talented and creative people to put the tiny little nuances and details in, and it is actually those details and nuances that make that world feel more realized, and so then the actor's performance or whatever can live inside it. And I think that on a game side, I feel that bringing some of that attention to detail that you would use in films back into it, stepping it up another level will increase the immersion. Because for me, it's always about immersion. So all I want to do is I want to play this game, and I don't even want to feel like I'm playing a game. I just want to feel like I'm lost in this world. And so for me, it's probably like I said, the attention to detail. And then from a sort of more boring production process basis, there are some, there are aspects of the film business that are silly, and there are also aspects of the film business that are pretty good, and they're very, very good at marshalling a large amount of people in a short period of time to achieve one unified creative vision. That's actually quite impressive when you're on a movie set and you see 200 or 300 people all operating in unison to deliver a combined vision, and they sort of do it in a very, or even if you think about visual effects in a movie, I mean, most of those big visual effects movies, they have 2,000 shots to do, and they deliver them. They finish shooting, and they've got 6 months or 8 months to do all the shots. And that's a huge challenge. I mean, in the game business, you do similar work, but you'll take 2 or 3 years to do the same level of volume, and a lot of times it's not to the same level of detail. So I think on that side, there's some good sort of techniques to sort of adapt and use. But I fully think that the game business is going to be the sort of entertainment medium of the 21st century. We're just at the beginning of our industry. So, if you look at a film that was made in the 20s, it's very primitive compared to films that are made today, because they sort of evolved from theater, so they're very static and the performance is very big. And then, as you got closer to the 70s, it became more naturalistic. And I think that the game business is just like that. I mean, I think we're still figuring out how to engage and how to immerse a player in a world or a universe. And that's kind of part of the fun of it, is to figure out the syntax and language is cool. I think I've got the time is up. Please wrap up on the front here. That's it. Oh, apparently our site is having millions of hits and is overloaded. So everyone out there, please be patient. Because hopefully, I think it's worth it. But it's great that there's so many people interested in it. But we'll try and get it back up when I guess we can. So that's it. So thank you, guys.
Alrighty. Yeah, there wasn't really a big crowd there, which is really interesting back at that time. I do want to bring up something very quickly here that our good friend, our deep research guy, fastcart, was able to stumble across something in Younique. We need your eyes here to tell us if we're dreaming or not. But this is what fastcart came up with. You guys forgive us. I'm going to block us. Does that look familiar to you, Younique?
The golden ticket?
No, on the page. It's on the site there. It should be on the thingy. So,
yeah. I mean,
okay, so that's the actual site. This is dated in 2012. And there we see the fundraising at the time. They were only at 33%, as you mentioned, Younique, of the $2 million that they were looking for. Right. A lot of us have never seen this before. So fastcart, thank you. Fastcart did some quick research.
Oh, good.
And went where I went, and he found it, and I didn't. But
yeah, they were only looking for $2 million.
Yep.
They were going to match $2 million with Chris Roberts' team's $2 million, and then get $6 million from a studio.
Yeah. And the one
from what Younique has said before, I think there's a site before this one, but I'm able to get access it on the Wayback Machine, but it has a date and you have an enter access code. I don't have the code, so I can't get past that.
Well,
so
yeah,
there is something before that that's available, but I can't get it. I can't get it any further.
Well, this one, for some reason or other, this kind of looks familiar, but then again, I'm like, nope, I never saw this. What I do remember was when Chris used to put these videos out on Vimeo, which is something I do remember. But here's what's interesting. It says the crowdfunding ends in 26 days.
It wasn't long.
So this tells you this is an early version. This might have been what Younique was talking about, because they only have $600,000 raised here, right?
Only.
That's it. Out of 2 million. Yeah. So this is before we get into the whole big crowd Kickstarter side of this whole thing. So I wanted to highlight that. So thank you, fastcart, for popping that up. The other thing that we wanted to do was take a quick look at the Kickstarter page, because we talked about this earlier. Guys, we'll put the link in chat for you. This page is still up. It's not active. It's been closed, obviously, because they passed their Kickstarter numbers. But if you want to check it out in detail, feel free to go here and look at what we're looking at. We're just going to kind of breeze through this very quickly because it's getting late. But we do want to kind of go through this for you guys. And some of these images you guys have seen before. what I want to do is highlight a couple of things that are here. One of the things that I want to highlight here, it opens up saying reclaim the stars in this exciting new space epic from legendary game designer Chris Roberts. And again, please keep in mind, this Kickstarter site came out after the Roberts Space Industry site. So after he did GDC, they said, hey, we had all this big response. The people blew out our website. We're going to partner. And we opened up with this video, by the way. He said, we're going to partner with Kickstarter so you guys will have a consistent way to be able to donate and make this project grow. Now, right below that, it says Cloud Imperium Games Corporation, but it's that next line that's stuck in my head. And I showed this to fastcart and Younique before. The line says 39,397 backers have pledged 2,134,374. And here's the key words: to help bring this project to life.
All right.
Not to complete it. That, in other words, to get things started, to breathe some life into this thing, we brought in $2 million. We're going to say,
and is that different from what other Kickstarter campaigns say when they're complete, or is that something?
You know, usually they just say something about, thank you, we've reached our goal, blah, 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 right? Okay. Which they did. They reached their goal. But I'm just saying that whole thing about bringing the project to life, it didn't say to complete the project, to finish the game, or anything else. When we scroll down a little bit further.
Yeah, this was the just to go forward money.
Yes, there you go. That's a good way of putting it. Just to get the ball moving, right? So on the right, and we're going to look at this in detail. This stuff on the right is kind of small, I know, for you guys, so I am going to show that on a different screen. But you can see that pledges started at $5 if you just wanted to give toward the project. Yeah, I mean, if that's all you wanted to do.
Yeah, it's a
that was
standard
great
Kickstarter thing.
Yep, the electro skin hull enhancement for existing players. If you own a ship already, you could get that skin. If you didn't have a ship, well, you just gave them $5, okay?
Does anybody have that skin?
No.
I know. There's a lot of stuff in the early days.
I have it. I have it in one of my physical packets. So I don't have that.
Yeah. If you can't use Kickstarter, break out your American Express Discover. You could do all that if you want to. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
PayPal.
Yep.
They had a brown paper bag they were passing around.
Yep. So here we go. Real quick, Star Citizen is a rich universe focused on epic space adventure, trading, and dogfighting in first person. Single player, offline and online, drop in and drop out of co-op play. That's what we were talking about earlier, okay? Persistent universe that'll be hosted by who? The US? Moddable multiplayer that will be hosted by you. Some of you may have heard that at one point you hear people talk about servers. We'll be able to play it on our own. That's where this stuff
But it's not
came
hosted
from.
by US. It's not the United States. Hosted by us.
They're
hosted by
Thank you. Yes, hosted by us.
Okay.
Thank you, Younique. Hosted by the US. By us, by them. All right.
Yeah,
no subscriptions. No pay to win. Those things we've heard. Of course, we do have a subscription, but not for that. Bit.me, thank you. 5 community subs. Thank you, 64.
Thank you.
Nice.
Awesome. We appreciate that.
Thanks
So does
for the
Whammer.
subscription.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whammer's back? Oh, nice.
Right at the time brings up a good point. That was before AWS cranked things up or not. So,
Yes.
Yeah, that was before AWS.
Yes. So there's more detail here. And once again, we put that link in the chat for you guys, but we want to go over some of these different levels. But Younique talked about this at the opening of the show, when later on they started introducing the stretch goals. And this is where we started out at the 2 million, then they went to 2.5, then 3.5, so on and so forth, until it finally got up to 5 million. Now, what I want to kind of do is go over some of the small points that are in here. And I thought I brought it up and I didn't. Let me read it real quick, guys. Give me 2 seconds here. Where's my link? I'm sorry. I thought I had my link here from my Kickstarter page. Copy, paste, and go. Okay. What it says there underneath that 6 million, or before that 6 million, between the 5 million and 6 million, it says there's a tablet companion app to check on your inventory, your commission, and find missions and get the galactic news feed. Now, that's
your Moby Glass.
That's your Moby Glass. I was going to say that, not a tablet. Yeah, not for your tablet, guys. That's your Moby Glass, okay? Increased community updates, monthly town hall meetings with Chris Roberts, Squadron 42, celebrity voice acting for Squadron 42. We will bring back at least one favorite from Wing Commander.
I wonder who that was.
50 missions, Star Citizen Persistent Universe. Now notice that's where that drops in after the $5 million point. The Star Citizen Persistent Universe. Then the Star Citizen will match Privateer with 70 star systems to explore on launch. Additional base type, you can discover the alien derelict. Then once they hit 5.5 million, it says the largest playable ship, the Bengal Carrier.
Now I wanna hang on. I want to say something right here.
Okay.
They didn't start out with stretch goals, yet they were showing you the Bengal Carrier. You'd be able to fly off of it, but it wasn't a playable ship. That was not in the plan.
That's a good point. Good point. Yeah.
Things started to change as more and more money started coming in. They're like, oh, well, what can we do for this? They're just making up stuff. Oh, well, make the Bengal flyable. That'll make them happy.
Yeah, good point. All right, at 6 million, Star Citizen will improve on Privateer with 100 star systems to explore on launch. The Bengal Carrier will be unlocked for persistent universe play.
You can't own it.
Yep, can't own it, but you can play it. Full orchestral music for Star Citizen and Squadron 42. There'll be a soundtrack. And then the last one is the first Squadron 42 mission discs, Behind Enemy Lines, available for free to all backers upon release. And
you ain't getting no disc.
You get a 16 mission campaign in the style, even if you did, well, what you gonna play it on these days, right? A 16 mission style campaign in the style of secret missions. Some of you guys remember that there were secret missions in Chris's previous games that you could unlock. Okay.
It'd be funny if I got a DVD or CD in the mail. I'll say she actually gave me a toaster. That's nice of them. I don't know what
if you pay now, you will get an email that contains a link to where you can download stuff. That's it.
Right now, yeah. But now, well, yeah. But the Kickstarter said you get a disc.
Yeah.
A disc.
No, yeah. But that's how things were changing. You know, there's so much technology and stuff has changed. It's like there's no CDs, there's no DVDs. You can't download over the internet. You ain't playing. That's it.
Now, we do want to encourage you guys to go check out the rest of this stuff. There's some updates. There's some hear things about the rewards. This digital add-ons, which is really interesting. Some of this stuff is still posted on the website, but some of it has changed, okay? This is when these were add-ons, right? The Electro Skin Hull Enhancement. We talked about that. The Exploration Skin, Military Skin, Blackbeard's, I don't know what the heck that is. The Blackbeard Stealth Skin. False color skin. There were add-on ships. The Aurora was $25. The 300i was $55. The Hornet 110. Freelancer 110. Constellation 225.
It's amazing how
I was in on the 300i.
Those prices are still the same.
Yep, they're
Hornet,
still the same.
And Constellation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Star,
the Constellation has changed.
Yep. Star Map $5. The soundtrack $10. Squadron 42 manual, $10. Making of Star Citizen, $10. The engineering manual for if you wanted to do modding, $10. The digital download of Star Citizen's novella. It's going to be written by Dave Haddock, the man behind Time Capsule and Spectrum Dispatch lore, $15. And then the pirate pack for $10. Then they had these final,
Let me interrupt real quick. A lot of those digital downloads are still available on the RSI site under the add-on. So if you think you missed out on them from not being on the Kickstarter, you didn't. They're still available on as an add-on. So you don't have to fear of missing out is not a thing for this. Just put it that way.
Cool. T-shirts, $25. Squadron 42 T-shirt, $25. Shut up and take my money, $5. Some of that stuff's in there, like you said. The Gladiator was $150. The M50 was $85. The Starfarer was, remember that, $175. The Caterpillar was $225. Retaliator was $250. Vandal Fighter was $300. And the Idris was $1,000. Now these
that's a steal, man.
There's a steal, right?
Well, as a early backer too, you got discounts. So my Banu was $250 to me.
Yeah, back then. Yeah, back then. Now, as we mentioned earlier, there were these physical add-ons that you could buy, right? It said, please note that shipping is required for tiers more than $125, below $125, I'm sorry, for any of these items. There was a glossy full color map, which was $10. There was the CD for $20. The hardback 42-page book for Squadron 42, the manual was $20. A hardbound 42-page book for the engineering was $20. Notice the prices have changed here. And the hardback bound 42 version of The Making of Star Citizen was $25. Then there was a spaceship. Those of you who got the package back with the con, you remember this. Spaceship-shaped USB stick was $30. Okay, that was another item that you could get. Yeah.
Now, before we move on, I just want to say these are no longer on the site. I think they did away with these in 2016. So physical stuff, other than like the shirts and slippers and stuff like that, this stuff is not available anymore. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
Absolutely.
But I have a physical package, so I have it.
Absolutely. So again, we want to direct you guys to go to the link that we posted. Check out if you've never checked out that page, feel free to do so. The other thing that we want to do is this here. Now this is on. Sorry, this is on Star Citizen Tools, I think. Let me make sure I got it right. I'm sorry, Star Citizen Wiki. Star Citizen Wiki. And what they do here is give the prices for these various things that we just talked about. But these were the different packages that they offered back then. There was the Kickstarter, which was $5. We talked about the skin you got. They had what they call Civilian, which was just a community pledge. You didn't get anything. You didn't get any ID card, nothing. But that was $10 if you just wanted to throw $10 in. Then it starts to change. At $30, they had what they call the Scout, which was a first pledge title was called a first responder. Some of you guys know when you go into your profile, you could pick these different titles and stuff based upon your giving, where that's where some of this stuff came from. And we've seen those change. But back then, you could put that down as your little moniker, your ID, and people could know at what level you gave in the game. So first responder, if you did that, you had an Aurora, you got 1,000 UEC, and you got what they called at the time alpha and beta access, okay? And you got like what they called a white card. And here's the other thing. These were limited to how many people could participate back then. Only 5,000 people. They wanted 5,000 people at that $30 level, okay? That's why you see the 5,000 on the far right there. After that, you had the Digital Scout, which was called an early adopter. You got the digital game license to play the game. Some of you guys don't remember that when you wanted to play the game, what was that thing called that you had to get the pass? What was it called?
Arena Commander pass.
The pass, right. You actually
you had to get a pass.
Pay to be able to play Arena Commander.
$5.
It was $5, okay? But you had a digital game license here, the Aurora, 1,000 UEC, and Alpha Beta access. There were 5,000 rooms for that. That was $30 too. When you went up to the next level, which was $35, excuse me, that went to early adopter again. I don't see very much changing there. Only 3,000 people were able to come in at that level. Then you went from 35.
I think they added more people because they got so overwhelmed with people trying, so they
people
added more people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it went from $35 to $37, such a small increment. Okay, there were 5,000 slots for that. Now it changes to Mercenary at $40. Have Starship Will Travel. And that one, you got the digital game, the Aurora 1000. Yeah, there's not much changing here until you get to the $60 place where Younique talked about. When you get there at Bounty Hunter, the title was Make Mine a Double. You got a 300i. You got 2,000 in UEC. Boy, you can't even buy a suit with that. You got the game soundtrack, you got a map of the universe, and you got the manual at $60. So there's a lot. You
got a green card,
and you got.
Back then they didn't have anything
right?
in game you could buy, so you didn't know if it was a lot of money or not. It just sounded like a lot.
It sounded like a lot. Yeah, that's true. Digital Bounty Hunter. I'm going to go through these very quickly again, but I want you to see how these increments went up. They went up by 10, 20, $15 at that time when you were giving, ultimately stopping, and here's some real cool stuff. Look at what you got when you got to a certain dollar amount. Let me see if I can find the one that really blew my mind. Was it 250? Okay. Some of you guys remember that there was a physical model of the Constellation back in the day. And when you gave $250, it was like an 8-inch die-cast metal version of the Connie. I want to say it was the Mark II. And that was one of the things that you would get here at the $250 level. At the $500 level, you get a Cutlass Black. That was interesting. A Cutlass Black, which was priced higher than the Connie, which I really couldn't figure out. That was interesting to me. Once you got above 500, you went to 1,000. This is the one that blew me away. Check this out. You get the Connie, you get a digital game license, you got 20,000 UEC, alpha beta access, a spaceship USB shape stick, soundtrack manual, CD, soundtrack, game universe map, glossy, 5 ship blueprints, 6 physical models of the Connie Andromeda, making of Star Citizen hardcover, and check this out, a 30-minute video conference with Chris Roberts. Now, that freaked me out. Now, whether that was a group conference or one, but there were only 50 people that got that. And that's when you got the platinum card. They were one-on-one? Okay.
Yep. 50
people, one-on-one with Chris Roberts, and that was what they called when you got the platinum card, okay?
And people are asking whether or not that ever happened. I think those did.
Oh, yeah,
it happened. It happened. Yeah, it happened. Yeah. At the 25,
no, I did not call to Chris.
Okay, at the 2,500 level. Now, notice when you get to 2,500 level, there ain't no limit here. Okay, there was a 50 limit at the 1,000, but here that was also because it was almost unexpected that people would pay that type of money. So I'm sure they didn't expect a lot of people to come forward with this. But at Grand
60 minutes.
Yeah, you got 60 minutes. Yeah, everything else is the same. But you got 60 minutes here. Plus, you got 5 flight-ready ships. Platinum card, but you got 5 flight-ready ships here, too. That was also another difference, too, at 2,500. Okay? After that, you jump to the 5,000 mark. At 5,000, it's called Go Boldly. You got to spend half a day with Chris Roberts.
Base Marshal.
If you spend $5,000, you got to spend half a day with Chris Roberts, okay? And then last but not least, I think this is the last enchilada here, is the $10,000 mark, okay? You got a Connie.
And the 5,000 get you a black card, and this one gets you a titanium card.
Titanium card, yeah. So you got a Connie Andromeda, 20,000 in UEC, alpha beta access, a ship paint for your Connie with a custom ship name on it. You got access to those of you who remember this, the Million Mile High Club. You got your USB stick, your soundtracks, your manuals, 5 ship blueprints, 10 physical models. You got 10 ships for $10,000 back then. You got the making of Star Citizen, and you got to spend the day with Chris Roberts and part of the development team.
And one thing you're missing is you skipped out on the CD. You get a physical CD with the soundtrack of the game, y'all. So yeah. No MP3s, just a CD. You can't nothing to play the CD on anymore.
Notice it's the Wing Commander level.
Yeah.
And there's no F8 on it.
Yes. Yeah. There was no F8. You're right. And only 10 ships.
Yeah.
10 grand.
There weren't a lot of things, you know.
That's
wing a prayer of ideas just jumbled together.
It's a big difference, right? Huge difference in what was there. Yeah. So, okay, we're about to wrap up the show because we went over a little bit on our time, but we hope you guys enjoyed it, and that, you know, if you, those of you who've never seen this information before, hopefully it was enlightening to you. We did put links in to chat so you could kind of see where the sources were that we pulled from, including the video. There was a lot here to take in, but I really want to express great appreciation to Younique, because there are very few people out there who can say they were around in the beginning. A lot of us will go back to Kickstarter or go back to maybe a year or two after that, but very few people that I know of that were around back when this thing first got kicked off. At Marzipan, thank you so much for that resub with Prime. Thank you.
Thanks for the subscription.
We do have some questions, guys, that people have tossed in, so why don't we take a look at those?
I think Quinn wants you to give away your 890.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Is
that what you're asking, Quinn?
Is that what Quinn's asking? Yeah, I'm not giving it away. We do have one in the hangar that I've been holding off on getting rid of, but I'm waiting for the right time to do that. Let's see. This is from Rotten Remy.
I'll trade you.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. Rotten Remy says, very interesting. Last updated, pledged 3 months later. I don't remember how they reached me. Oh, okay. What came after the Kickstarter? What came after the Kickstarter was the website. If you remember, there, like, you know, Younique talked about how bad that original was. Money. Right, but they started doing it through their other website after that, and that website was horrible too. But at least it did work. But it went to the RSI site after that. And then Pops in Space says, what do you think of the technology that has been added to the game and to the future to come, like server meshing? Does it add excitement or frustration? Pops, you asking the question is totally outside of the Kickstarter. Because we can talk about that, but we understand.
Why do you hate me, Pops?
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, Pops. It's we've been, like I said, we've been around 8 to 10 years amongst those who are sitting here right now. So we've watched the progress of the game, and like everybody else's gamers, I think we get frustrated. We have our times where we, forget it, I'll come back later. And then we have those times when we play the game, we have a great experience, and it's just like as if nothing's wrong, like a lot of players.
I think Pop is mostly referring to the technology that we see in the video and in the GDC video compared to what we see now.
Oh my God!
And basically, yeah, it excites me because I mean I know as time goes on, it's going to get more and more impressive compared to what we saw then. I mean, Griffin says it all the time. But like back then, we thought that stuff was the stuff, right? So we were excited, and I mean, going back to CitizenCon and stuff like that, everyone would cheer and hooray and everything like that whenever something comes on the screen. So yeah, it excited me back then, and it still excites me now.
Yeah.
The thing I miss is, remember when we had the dynamic hangars? They would just get larger based on the number of ships you had. And I had so many ships, and that thing would dynamically build out. I actually had to take the buggy to drive down to get to the end of it, because it would take 30 minutes to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they had the
30 minutes, really?
Yeah.
Or if you had like a lot of ships, it took a while to walk down there.
It took a long time.
It took a while.
And then they had some like track pieces, jumps and stuff, and hoops for the buggy that you could put in your hangar and drive around and jump button.
Well, a couple shows back,
they were fun.
Yeah, a couple shows back, we did the show Come and Gone, which Younique is talking about, where we talked about those things that used to be in the game. We've seen not only things that they've tested, but we've seen the technology morph. And to your point, Pops, to answer your question from a different way, I would say that one of the things that's always promising to me is that CIG is still remaining relevant and cutting edge, because there have been people who've been concerned about that. They've been concerned about, will Star Citizen be able to keep up as other games develop, as technology develops? Will the game start looking old? And as far as I'm concerned, they've created their own style. It's not Unreal 5, and that's okay for me, because it's real enough with the immersion, what they have created, that I'm content with that. And so some people will say, well, why don't they change engines or blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no.
Yeah,
what they're doing, as long as they keep it fresh and keep innovating it. And for those of you who've been in 3.18 since Gen 12 has come in, you guys have seen the improvements in the graphics already. And as long as they can continue to do that, then I'm very happy with watching the progress from what we saw in 2012. Like we said, we thought that was the stuff back then, and now you look at it and it's like, ooh, I feel like 1980s. I mean, it's a different feel now when you look at the technology.
1990s.
Yeah, we'll say 90s. Yeah, we didn't go back to 8-bit, completely 8-bit, right? Okay.
You're right.
Yep. So no, those are great questions. Go ahead.
One of my final thoughts, I'm so glad that I didn't start a drinking game, because I did not realize how many times he said fidelity and immersion in the CDC presentation. Because I mean, that's where the drinking game started originally, I guess. Because I mean, he said it a lot.
Yeah.
So, I'm so glad I didn't start a drinking game for that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, listen, we want to tell you guys about what's coming up. We've had a great day today. As you guys know, fastcart, why don't you tell them about what's going on, the next two things, and I'll talk about next week.
Oh, so Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. UTC, we have Soul Talk on YouTube and Twitch, and sometimes Facebook, I guess. But that's where we talk about what's going on that week in Star Citizen community. Mostly we cover ISC, but that's on hiatus. We cover SEO, but that's on hiatus also. And we cover Machinima. But basically, we cover what's in the comic and the dev tracker. And you want me to cover Soul Voices too?
Yep.
Yeah, Soul Voices is Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UTC on Twitch and YouTube and sometimes Facebook again. But that's part of that Saturday. We kick it off. Soul Voices cover what's going on in the community, but this time it's more one-on-one. On Soul Talk, everyone is invited to come in and just hang out and chat. Soul Voices more one-on-one. We cover what's going on Reddit, what's going on Spectrum, and sometimes and what's going on in the industries in general. So that's so voicing.
Yeah, thank you, man. And next Sunday, for our Sunday show, we're going to be doing a show called, we've done this before whenever there's a patch coming out. We're going to be doing update 3.18. Some of you guys have access to it, some of you don't. You just be able to watch other content creators and what they've been doing in the game. So we want to kind of go over the things that we like, the things that are working. They've just put out some new patches over the past week. The game has become more stable. And obviously there's a lot in this patch. My good friend Cosmic Trader has talked about how there's stuff in the game that, most of us haven't even seen yet. They've added so many things into the game. It's so beyond just the reclaimer and the salvaging. There's the rivers, there's the racetracks, there's all these other things that they've put into the game that some of us haven't even seen. So hopefully, for my folks, make sure you get into the game this week and play so we can talk about it next week, because we really do want to be able to show some of you guys and talk to you about the things that we like and maybe things that, we know that they're still having problems with 3.18. But thankfully, they were able to get it out to PTU before end of the year, and we're having a lot of fun with it. For those of you who haven't done salvaging, if you haven't tried it,
it's pretty fun.
It is. It's very, very cool. Very, very cool. The other thing that I do want to talk about, next Saturday, Soul Citizens is hosting an event next week called the what is it called? Content Creators Summit. I got to remember myself. I have to remember what it is myself. What we're doing is we've invited content creators who, Star Citizen content creators, to join us next Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, for the very first time, where we're going to get together and talk about what it means to be a content creator with Star Citizen. What are the hurdles? What are the good things, bad things, community, CIG, the game state, all that good stuff. And we're going to open this up so that all the content creators can also stream it themselves. So you don't have to come here to watch it. If you've got a favorite content creator you watch other than us, you could tune in. And hopefully if they want to stream it, they'll stream it and you can watch it from there. But you'll get to see it. Now, it is so that you can watch it. These content creators are actually going to be on Zoom. And so if you are a content creator of Star Citizen, you can register for it. We put the link in there for you. You have to be someone who content creates on TikTok, YouTube, or Twitch. We are going to check and see if you're a content creator. So don't say I'm a content creator. We're going, if we don't see the content that's out there, you're not going to be admitted into it, because we have, I can tell you now, we have 60 content creators already registered for this next week. Hopefully they'll all show up, but they have registered at 60 and we expect more people over the next week. So if you guys want to come and hang out and watch and see what we have to say, see the different conversations that go on between content creators, then I think it'll be a lot of fun. And we are really looking forward to bringing these content creators together, especially right now with all this going on with Star Citizen. There's a lot of great stuff going on. So hopefully you guys will be able to tune in for that next week. Other than that, fastcart, is there anything else that I'm missing? I'm checking with you because I'm getting old and forgetful.
We have a raid. You can raid.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna forget that.
I think that's it. Okay, nope, that's it.
Well, FC.
That's it, I guess.
Yep, Younique. Thank you so much again. You always lend great stuff to us, especially on the historical side of what's going on with Star Citizen, and you kind of really made me feel better learning some things about how that information came out, because I was really concerned that I was saying maybe the wrong stuff, but you kind of laid it out there for us. So thank you again for that. Okay.
I try, but I'm getting old. Can't remember everything. But check out my article on medium.com.
Oh, yes.
I just wrote a piece on 318.
Is there a link? Can you put the link in for us?
Yeah, let me find it.
You guys make sure, listen, Younique wrote a great article. It's really, really good. Take a look at it. He'll drop the link into chat. I'm going to actually wait for him to do that if he can, because I want to make sure you guys get it. But take a look at it. He did a really nice piece on Star Citizen. It was really great. For all of you who were here today, who followed, who subscribed, we appreciate you guys as always.
We got 20 subscriptions today. Wow,
that's great. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, we really appreciate that. And that means it's time for giveaways. We got to do something sometime this month and do some more giveaways. Younique's always wanted me to do some giveaways, so we're going to do some giveaways. You got your link?
Yeah, I just got it.
All right,
paste it in.
So there you go, guys. Check that out. Visit it. It's really, really good. And thank you, fastcart, again, for what you shared today as well. We're the two youngsters to this guy, but we've been around a little while too. We've been on the block a little while with the game. Okay, we're gonna get going. We're gonna go ahead and do a raid with Verity. You guys know Verity, beautiful redhead who does great streams. If when you get over there, send us her love. Let her know you came from the Soul Citizens. And again, Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks for joining us back for our first show of 2023. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. Until then, peace, love. and Soul. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys soon.
Wave 2, no idea when is it